for bands of that stature and that level, there is no fucking reason under the sun for you to have to put out an album cover that looks like that.
I know, and they just look like dog shit too. I mean, and that's the thing, like with Psycroptic especially, like we've always got such a like tight affiliation with getting the art right for the music, you know? Like when we had As the Kingdom Drowns, we got the artwork done before I wrote the lyrics so that I could, you know, look at it and draw inspiration and, you know, so it tied it together so well. And I think for them to just punch in a few fucking prompts and, you know, it's just like rubbish, really.
Greetings, Legion, and welcome to episode 217 of Into the Necrosphere. This week, the long overdue return of my brother, Jason Peppiatt. Jason is an artist. He is also the frontman for Psycroptic, arguably one of the biggest Australian death metal exports. He is the guitarist for Perma Fog. He is also the founding member, vocalist, and guitarist for Domination Campaign, amongst others, as it turns out. We covered all of his musical projects over a 2-hour conversation. We spoke about maybe a couple of other things that he's got in the pipeline. We also got a little personal. So this is a super fun conversation. It's going to be coming your way very shortly. I've also got a little surprise in store for those of you that stick around for the news rant. I'll talk about that in a few minutes, but before we get to that, it's time to celebrate another independent band. Out of Norway, a band called Flukt. They have got an album out called Omen of Darkness. It's available right now on Bandcamp. I think it's fantastic. I think you guys will agree. This is a track off of that record called Walls Within Walls. Walls Within Walls is the name of the track. The band is Flukt out of Norway. The album Omen of Darkness, and it is available right now on Bandcamp. Flukt, of course, joins those chosen few who have had the privilege of bathing in the spotlight of the Into the Necrosphere Unsigned band segment that we have made tradition in the intro of the show. But if you are an unsigned band and you've just turned out an album that you think is pretty shit hot, then drop me a line on intothenecrosphere@gmail.com or reach out to me on any of the socials where you can follow me. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and on X. If I like what I hear, I'll play it on the show. I might take a little while to get around to it because I've got a bit of a backlog, but either way, I am dedicated to celebrating the underground and to making you guys aware of bands that maybe you wouldn't otherwise have caught wind of. If you are new to the podcast, I need not remind you that you can grab the closest folding chair and beat the subscribe button on your platform of choice until it begs you for mercy. I've mentioned the socials. You can also check out the Into the Necrosphere Teespring store if you want to buy yourself a t-shirt or a hoodie or any other podcast-related merchandise. And then, of course, I am a member of an elite podcasting cabal, a group of men dedicated to fighting mediocrity and bringing you superb, top-notch content from Monday to Sunday. We kick off your week every Monday with an installment of Horrorwolf 666, brought to you by the inimitable Brandon Legion. On a Tuesday, there's yours truly casting hexes and slaying poses on Into the Necrosphere. Every Wednesday, Sensei Mike Hill brings you another episode of Everything Went Black. Every Thursday, there's one of my favorite podcasts of the week, Necromaniacs, hosted by Sensei Mike Hill, co-hosted by Sheriff Mike Scodotto and Professor Jeff Kashid. Like I said, one of my favorite podcasts of the week, and it just so happens that on this week's episode, this week's installment of the news rant, I should say, I am going to be joined by none other than Sheriff Mike Scodotto. So we're going to be listening to new music by 6 Feet Under, Ulcerate, Pestilence, Blaze of Perdition. There's a bunch of bands all rounded up for judgment, and we will decide collectively whether or not they cut the mustard. But great catching up with him. It's a really, really, really fun news rant. So again, make sure after my conversation with Jason is done that you don't go anywhere. And of course, on a Sunday, the Reverend Carl Haikara, the Sinister Minister, brings you another episode of Soul Knocks. Carl and I have something special hatched up as well. It may or may not coincide with the release of the forthcoming My Dying Bride record. But watch this space. I'll tell you once that's all done and dusted. One thing that I can also guarantee you is that next week when I'm at Inferno, one of the people I'll be hanging out with is my man Cheyenne of the band Trivax. Of course, he brings you an installment of his podcast, Iblis Manifestations, when you least expect it. And that reminds me just to say, if you are going to be at the Inferno Festival at the Rockefeller Center in Oslo, Norway, I will be there from Wednesday to Sunday. I will also be at the Inferno Music Conference that takes place, I believe, on Thursday and Friday. I'm a guest on no less than 2 panels where I will be joined by Cheyenne of Trivax. Katie is going to be moderating one of them. We're going to be talking about how podcasts have killed the radio star. We'll also be talking about freedom of speech and some of the topics that you will hear me regularly discuss on this podcast. So if you're there, come up and say hello. Hope to meet as many of you guys there as possible. And of course, I will share in due course who I have managed to snag interviews with. However, they have got a tall benchmark to live up to after today's conversation. So sit back and enjoy as I welcome back to the podcast for the second time and absolutely not the last time, Jason Peppiatt of Psycroptic, Permafog, and Domination Campaign. I want to start with this question. Did I dump you in it by claiming on the news rant that if Deicide had come to you and said, hey, we want you to do an album cover for us, you would do it for free?
I would have been stoked. I would have been absolutely stoked had they called me up about it. And Pestilence as well. And Hour of Penance. I know those dudes as well. And I think, I don't really get what's going on with all that shit at the moment. It's a bit of a cop-out, though. Yeah, I think, anyway.
This was my point, right? Like in terms of it being a cop-out, I just knowing you and Matt Prizzo, I knowing you guys as I do, I knew both of you guys would have said we would happily do it for free. There's, you can choose from the archive, or we'll do something specifically for you.
Tell me what you want.
Yeah, there's absolute like for bands of that stature and that level, there is no fucking reason under the sun for you to have to put out an album cover that looks like that.
I know, and they just look like dog shit too. I mean, and that's the thing, like with Psycroptic especially, like we've always got such a tight affiliation with getting the art right for the music, like when we had As the Kingdom Drowns, we got the artwork done before I wrote the lyrics so that I could, look at it and draw inspiration, and, so it tied it together so well. And I think for them to just punch in a few fucking prompts and, it's just fucking rubbish, really.
It shows, as I said before, it shows to me a limited level of investment in the product that you're putting out, because exactly like you just said there now, like with Psycroptic, there's a process, right? You want to see the artwork, the artwork has to go with the music. I remember having one of the guys from Septic Flesh on the podcast as well, and he was saying they would send the artist there, and I know one of the dudes from Septic Flesh actually used to do
Seth did one of our covers too.
But it's like Seth would listen to the music first, and then he would do the artwork, and there was almost an excitement to getting the artwork back and going, wow, this is what the music, or what the art that I recorded in the studio represented to this artist. And that to me, as a musician, that must, when he said it, I thought to myself, that must be so fucking cool to be able to see somebody like an artist interpret what you're what you have kind of presented back to them.
And especially when they get it so right as well, like when it comes back and you're like, even as the artist, as the musician that wrote the songs, and you've spent so much time working on it, when the artwork comes back and it's so fucking perfect and ties it together, it's just the cream on top, It's just that thing that finishes an album off perfectly when an artist gets it so right. And I mean, for me personally, doing all the lyrical concepts for Psycroptic and also being an artist myself, I find it so hard myself to tie the two together. And that's why I don't really bother trying to ever try and do any art for Psycroptic. Like I don't think I'd want to do an album cover or anything like that for it.
Have you ever attempted?
No, I did 2 T-shirt designs when we did that Watcher of All EP. Dave said, I want you to do a T-shirt design for each one. We got the cover art done prior to that, but even that, like, I think one of them, I don't think the art really matched the lyrical content well. One of them definitely did, but just trying to actually get the visual concept there for my own lyrics, I found so much harder than I ever thought I would. And after that, I was kind of like, I don't think I want to do this with Psycroptic anymore. Like, it's not something I want to pursue. Whereas with Domination Campaign, it's not, the lyrics aren't so deep.
Yeah.
I guess you'd say, it's more that just straight down the line, brutal war stuff, and it's doing the artwork for that. I really enjoyed doing that, but I suppose conceptually it was a lot easier.
I was going to say, like, well, what creates that blocker for you when it comes to Psycroptic? Is it because of the level of investment that you have personally in the lyrics? What kind of holds you back, or holds your artistic inspiration back there?
I think it is the fact. So with Domination Campaign, obviously I don't want the lyrics to be shit. I want them to still be good, and I put a lot of work into them, but it's nothing like what I do with Psycroptic. So with Domination Campaign, because I'm doing everything and I'm doing all the music, all the lyrics, it's the bigger picture is there. But with Psycroptic, I'm just so focused on the lyrics, so much more work goes into them. So I think just from that point of view, it's kind of like once I finish the lyrics, I almost just like to hand the concepts off to someone else so that they can put their spin on it.
I'm busy looking at some of the album covers again now, and I mean, I've never
I can't ever recall a Psycroptic record not having a great album cover.
Oh, they're all absolutely bang on, I think.
Out of interest, which have been your favorite over the years?
As the Kingdom Drowns, that was definitely my favorite artwork that we've done.
How come?
Well, Dave gave, that was that Mariusz Lewandowski, I think is how you say it, is a Polish dude. Dave hit him up when we were mainly in the musical phase still. So no lyrics had been written, finalized, anything like that. And Dave went to him just with a bunch of ideas. And he came back with that. And, I mean, we fucking loved it. And Dave sent it to me and said, here's your inspiration for all your lyrics. Try and look at it. And so when I was writing lyrics, I had it up on the screen. And, you know, I don't know. I think when I was writing, I kind of formed such a connection with that art. So, and I think it was simple. I mean, it's an amazing piece of art, but I think a lot of that was simply just because of the time that I got it in the process of doing the album.
It's a very stark piece of art. Like this is also the interesting thing. Like a lot of bands have similar themes running through their artwork, or there's kind of a thread that connects all of them. Well, you guys tend to do everything is quite distinct. Define Council's cover is very, very different to As the Kingdom Drowns, you know, versus something like Symbols of Failure, or one of my favorite album covers is the Inherited Repression.
Yeah,
I mean, it's also one of my favorite Psycroptic albums, but the album cover is
it's so stark.
It's very, very cool, and weirdly enough, it feels very contemporary in our day and age.
Yeah.
You know, even though the album is 12 years old, but it's got a. I just remember seeing that, and that it just felt incredibly impactful. But interesting what you said about having the album cover up on screen as you're writing the lyrics. What is your process when it comes to lyric writing?
I'm relentless with it. I mean, with that album, majority of the time when I was inspired, I'd have up on my Surface Pro screen, I'd have the artwork for it there, and I'm still a lot of it. Well, with that album especially, I was still a pen on paper guy, so I'm not typing or anything like that. So I just don't like. Well, every night I'll try and put creative time aside. You know, whether I'm writing an album or whatever. You know, so when it comes time to write for Psycroptic, like creative time is all for writing all the lyrics and the vocal parts and stuff. So it'll be, I usually block out a certain amount of time a night. So it'll be like, all right, kids are settled and doing their thing by 8 o'clock at night. So from 8 o'clock till, 10 o'clock maybe, if, things are going well, if things are going great, sometimes it'll be till 1 o'clock in the morning, and it's just right. And even a lot of the time, if what I'm writing isn't inspired or whatever, I try to at least be getting something down every night, because at least then you kind of, out of 5 pages, majority of it might be shit, but there might be a line, a couple of words that are put together that are good, that might spark something good and creative the next night. So it's just putting in the time, really. And I do find as well, even sometimes, because when I sort of get into that zone, you kind of find, I find myself getting really fixated on it. So I'll be at work, working away. I might have, the demos Joe sent me on the headphones going, and bang, things might just start coming to me. So it's like, lucky I'm my own boss, so I can just sit down and start, just even get on the iPhone notes and just start writing it out. And I've had times where I'll be taking an hour-long break when I'm not meant to be, and just because inspiration hits. So
yeah. Well, I was going to ask you, like, what's the, like, how does inspiration work for you? Because it's very different. But in my working world, I often talk to people that work for me about this as well, and I say, look, when I get stuck on an idea for a presentation or a pitch deck or something like that, one of the things I go and do is I take a walk. And very often what's happened with me is, if I've taken a walk, sometimes I'll find I could have sat in front of the screen for 2 hours, nothing is coming out. Stand up, take a walk. I will, on that half an hour walk, I'll bang out almost 10 slides.
Yeah.
Literally, like have it conceptually outlined in my head. I don't know what it is, if it's the blood flow, if it's just your heart's going, or if it's just being able to kind of clear your mind of everything else.
I think with a lot of that stuff is as well, like when you do come across that block, it's because it sometimes gets to the point, I think, where you're trying to force something to happen.
Yeah.
When it doesn't want to. And it's almost like when you just let go and you're like, well, fuck this, it's not happened. I'll go for a walk. I'll go make a coffee, do something else, and your focus shifts. And I think it's almost like as soon as you relax your mind to it, then shit can happen. It's like when like when I go for a run or whatever, if you're all tense, you're having a shit time, and it's like, even though you're doing a hard task, you've almost got to relax to make it, make things flow better.
Yeah.
And it's the same sort of principle, I guess. If you're stiff and rigid and trying to force something, it just, I don't know, it just doesn't seem to happen.
What like in terms of your lyrical style, like what sort of lyrics do you tend to gravitate towards when you're listening to bands? Like, have you got specific lyricists that you think do an incredible job?
There's plenty that I like. I mean, I love like Peter Tagtron's stuff that he does with Hypocrisy throughout the whole career. He does a lot of good wordplay, I find. One that I really like, but I don't probably draw so much. I wouldn't say I don't draw inspiration for myself. Well, I more find it motivating is with a lot of the later Marduk stuff as well.
Yeah.
Like albums like Front Schwein, just not so much anything apart from the fact when I read it, it sounds like it's really well thought out. And so you kind of listen to it and you kind of, I'm almost like to read stuff that's really well written because it kind of sets that bar high.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. So if you're reading, I mean, I love all your slam death metal and all that sort of stuff, but you read the lyrics to a lot of that. It's just like, fucking hell.
Someone
no one's going to be able to understand what they're saying anyway, so they're like, I'll just put anything down. But
yeah, how much crazy hateful shit can I write down? All right,
exactly.
I'm just gonna be barking it over the music anyway. So who gives
exactly? Yeah. And so like I'm not gonna read something like that to try and get inspired because to me it's kind of setting the bar low with a lot of that stuff. So I kind of like to read stuff from guys that are really great writers, and then at least it's got you on that thought process where you're like, fuck, I've got to really, bring out my A game while I'm writing this stuff because there's dudes out there that are this good that are doing this sort of stuff. So I think I find that a lot. I don't know where it sort of comes from. I think just when I get on a flow with writing, like getting my first song down, it's always I think with an album, it's the first song's the hardest because you're trying to sort of get in a flow and being able to find inspiration for ideas. And then it's always your last song as well is the other hard one because by the time you get that far in, you're like, fuck, I've written so many words down. You're kind of starting to run out of ideas. Well, I find anyway. So, yeah.
Like when you start writing for an album, do you always have like a theme in mind or an idea in mind, or does that start to kind of naturally as it goes on?
It just kind of builds, I suppose, as time goes on. I think you do find, and it's the same when like writing music on guitar as well. Like you kind of do end up when you're writing in a group sort of thing where you've got the aim of writing 8 or 9 songs, you can kind of, you do find that your style gets very similar from song to song, and same with like lyrics and guitar and everything like that. So yeah, your ideas do sort of, start to get similar, and a theme just sort of builds organically anyway, I find. I mean, for me, it does anyway. So, and before you know it, you're looking, and I do find this a lot with Psycroptic lyrics as well. I do find when I'm in the proofreading stage, sometimes you kind of like, fuck, some of these lines from song to song can be almost too similar, or even sometimes you do find you do use exactly the same line 5 songs later. So you're like,
and then you go, that's concept record, guy.
yeah. Well, I actually had it on the Domination Campaign album. I had like a huge big riff bin of stuff that I'd written, and it was kind of like when we get stuck on something, I'd consult that because it was all good riffs, but that didn't kind of fit anywhere at the time when I was working. And I found on the latest Domination Campaign, I think it was 2 riffs that exactly the same riff features twice throughout the album in different songs. So, and me and Joe didn't even pick it up till like late in the piece. We were like, fuck, that riff's in another song, but it just had like a melody line over the top. So, and it was drummed differently, and we just we didn't even pick up on it at the time. But it's kind of well, fuck it. It's my album. It's my album. I can do what I want.
Do you give any kind of thought to the way that you're going to do the way you're going to deliver the lyrics when you're writing them? Like if I look at some lyricists that I really like, you can tell that Phil Anselmo, when he writes lyrics, you can tell he has in mind how he's going to sing them, and then the rhythm that he's going to use when he delivers them. We've spoken a lot about him, and I'll bring up his lyrics in more detail in a bit. But if I go back to like the first Deicide record as well, there's a definite rhythm in what Glenn wrote there. I mean, it's hateful shit, and it's all the same message reiterated over and over again. But it's if you go away from the first Deicide record, you go to the second one. Repent, Legion, the song "Repent to Die." There's that line, "Go fuck your God" will be my final words. But there's like a real he's writing to the rhythm of the song. And I've always loved that. Like for me, I'm so lyrics mean something to me to a degree, but like they stand out for me more in the sense of what I really like versus what I don't like and what detracts from a song, right? So the ones that stand out to me are always the ones where you can say something that's got a reasonable degree of meaning, but it's more for me in how it's delivered. Another great example, modern day example. One of your countrymen in Werewolves, the song "I Hate Therefore I Am," that I've waited years for the burning to start. I've waited for so long, my hands itch for the spark. I mean, it's perfect for that band, but it's just so unbelievably well written. There's no fat in those lines, and it suits the rhythm of the song just perfectly.
Yeah, and I mean, I find that I don't start writing anything until I've got the demos and not just the riffs. Like Joe does all these demos with drum programming, but I won't start actually writing my lyrics and vocal parts until I've got confirmation that the actual grooves that are used on the demos are how they're going to be when it comes to actual proper album time. Because when I do write, I write with the song, and the lines are written. It's not me just writing a big scroll of shit and then trying to fit them to the song. It was like that in the earlier days when we were more of a straight out tech death band, because you can sort of get away with it more because you're jamming so many fucking lyrics in and everything's so fast, and get away. But I think with the later stuff, when we more took sort of to the strip back and a bit more thrashing and grooving and stuff, all the lyrics are actually written to the song so that your syllables are all right. So you're not trying to force something to fit where it doesn't. It does. You're not trying to like rush the last syllable or two in or whatever. So it's. Your words are actually designed for the groove that you've got in your head with it, almost. So you get all your syncopations correct and make it more hooky, I guess, is probably the way I'd say. Because I mean, with all the Psycroptic stuff, because there is, it does get techie, and the stuff that Joe's doing on guitar can get a bit wild at times, and it's kind of like. We try to use the vocals as, I suppose the hook and the anchor, I suppose you'd say, so that, there is that kind of even if the music's getting a bit wild, the vocals are still going very straight down the line. And yeah, just try to keep the hook in it.
That is, I think that's the exact right word, is the hook. When I talk to somebody who doesn't know anything about extreme music, that's one of the things I say to them. It's like really great death, and to maybe to a lesser extent black metal vocalists, but some of the best black metal vocalists apply this as well. But really great death metal vocalists, they understand that their vocals need to be part of the hook of the song.
Yeah,
and so they don't. Like, I feel like there's been and I've spoken about it myself, but I don't really necessarily a lot of other people speaking about it. There's definitely been a massive evolution from the early days of death metal to now when it comes to how vocals are being used. And some people do it extremely well. Some people just can't get it right. They use that sort of typewriter staccato rhythm in their voice, where it's like, I was actually, weirdly enough, I was listening to, so the new 6 Feet Under single came out. I was expecting it to be absolutely atrocious. I gave it a listen. It inspired me to go back and listen to Haunted. Which is
great album,
a fucking great record.
Yeah,
and then I went back and I
Alan West wrote most of it. So
yeah, that album has just got such a great vibe, and to me, that's Chris's best vocal performance. He sounds so powerful and so like in control there, in very stark contrast what happened later on. But you know, sorry, you're going to say?
That's the thing that's funny with it, like. I don't know where it all fell apart, because like with that, and what was the one after that? Was it like Maximum Violence?
So it was Warpath, and then it was Maximum Violence.
Yeah, so those albums that came after, I didn't think they were too bad, but after that it was just like, I don't know what the fuck's going on here. Yeah. But like Haunted, I remember when that first came out, and it was just like this perfect blend of like Obituary and early Cannibal Corpse, you know. And I remember it was fucking absolutely awesome. But yeah, it just
I've been thinking about it this last week, actually, because so I listened to Haunted, and then I listened to Maximum Violence. And Maximum Violence I really, really liked when it came out, and this is probably a decade at least since I'd properly listened to the record. There's still one or two really good songs on there. Torture Killer, for example, superb song. Yeah. But in the main, the song's really showing its age, much more so, interestingly, than Haunted. And he also has that exact kind of staccato way of vocaling, where it's like like you were describing, he's trying to squeeze in those last couple of syllables, the very in a very rushed way at the end of the sentence. Yeah. He does that an awful lot on Maximum Violence, which weirdly on Haunted, not at all. It's super relaxed, you know. The lyrics are cheesy, but they sound so cool. You know, it's like on Still Alive, the alive, undead, alive. Something has given me life. But so my theory is
Beneath the Black Sky.
That's
the other real killer one on that.
The theory I came up with is, I wonder, because they did Haunted, and then he went into the studio and he did Created to Kill, which then obviously became Vile. And if you listen to the difference in his vocal quality between Haunted and Warpath, that's very clearly where the drop-off happens. Like he gets a little better again on Maximum Violence, but the rhythms are not there. There's just like it's like a fucking, you know, dog who's had one of his nuts removed. It's like it's not the same bonds from the Bleeding and Haunted. And so the theory, and I keep fucking dancing around this, but the theory is, I wonder whether he didn't fuck his voice up permanently in those Created to Kill sessions. Because if you think about the story around that, so the narrative was he was struggling to make his vocals work on the new material. And you look at it and you go, well, you know, he just wasn't up to snuff. But then you put yourself in his shoes and you think, I don't think at that time he had any desire to leave Cannibal Corpse. So he was probably hearing this material and really having to push himself, in the studio and try to do stuff that he just wasn't capable of doing. And it just seems to me to be I'm starting to think less and less that it's a coincidence that his vocals, or a coincidence or weed related, that his vocals from Haunted to Warpath just is so different, and just not, it's a shadow of his former self, really.
Yeah. I mean, from all accounts, he absolutely loves smoking bongs. So
He does.
I mean, that could be a bit to do with it. But I mean, there is that whole thing. I mean, you do hear of guys that do just fucking cook their voice.
Mm.
I mean, you look at things like, and I know what it's like to be like, if you're trying to sing a song that's not in a key or not in a range that suits you, and you're forcing your voice to somewhere where it naturally doesn't want to go. Like, I know there's a few Psycroptic songs where we just won't do them live anymore because they're just at a really uncomfortable like range key for my voice. It's just totally wrong. And it's every time we do them live, like it used to have to be, you know, songs like Sleepers Have Awoken. We used to always have to put it at the end of the sets, but just something about that song was always pushing my voice beyond where I wanted it to go, you know, where it was comfortable to go. And it kind of got to the point where I knew with that song that we keep playing this, and there was a couple others that are in the same sort of key that I knew I'd do some damage to my voice, you know, and to the point where it may not recover permanently. So you do hear stuff like that happens. So yeah.
Have you deployed over the years of being in Psycroptic and being in different bands? Have you ever kind of started to apply things that are, you know, techniques to preserve your voice? You know, like you see guys do the do re mi fa so, you know, warm up backstage and all of this sort of shit.
Yeah.
Do you do any?
I do all the warm up stuff. But yeah, I mean, a big game changer for me was. So I started having problems with my hearing because I couldn't ever use earplugs on stage. Like I just found when I'd sing, your ear canals kind of close over, and so I could never hear anything, and then I'd sing too hard to try and compensate for the fact that I could never hear myself. So I'd blow my voice out there. So I stopped wearing earplugs, which that made the hearing thing a little bit better, made the not pushing my vocals so hard.
Yeah.
A bit better. But then it was fucking my hearing, which that ends up becoming a problem in itself as well. So we ended up getting on like in-ear monitors. So you just got the pack in your back pocket and the earbuds in. And so basically my vocals are fed directly into my ears. And so as soon as I started doing that live, I found I didn't need to push my vocals anywhere near as hard as I was. Which that I think in itself just created a whole lot of preservation of my vocals there. So it was like when you sing in a studio, because everything's so clear and crisp, you don't have to sing quite as hard. And so it just almost creates that same sort of thing. I mean, you've still got the live environment because you've got the crowd in front of you and all the spill and the air movement and all that, but it does just mean that you're not just struggling to hear yourself and compensating with your voice and pushing it too hard. So when we started doing that, it was, like the whole live thing just ended up being a fucking game changer for me.
How do you find performing with those in-ear monitors? Like, do they have a very snug fit? Because I know you and I are both, you know, we're both men that like action on stage. So, you know, move around a lot on stage. So
I found when I first got them, the earbuds I got first, I had fucking problems where I'd start headbanging and I'd get sweaty and the fucking thing would fly out of my ear. Yeah. And so you'd have this cord dangling, you know, fucking that's a nightmare. And then a heap of people got me onto these Shure in-ear ones, and they've just got like a foam. It's almost like, those foam earplugs you put in.
Yeah, so there's like expanding.
Yeah, and you stick them in your ear and they sort of hook over your ear and then you clip them onto the back of your shirt. And so now I don't have any problems with them. You don't even notice they're there. The biggest thing I think is a pain in the ass with them is like between songs, if me and Todd start talking to each other, we've got to pop one out because they're almost like block out a fair bit so you can't hear each other. Like someone will start talking to me, I'm like, what the fuck? So, yeah, That's about the only downfall with them, though. Apart from that, they're fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And
how much of your hearing did you lose? Did you ever have your hearing checked?
No, but I've got pretty bad tinnitus where it's ringing constantly. I've got my left ear. If I get into like a loud room or something, like it does start to crackle quite a bit, and then it gets hard to almost focus on what people are saying. So it's not like it's day to day. It's not too bad, but it's more like if you go down to the local pub or something like that, you're gonna be struggling if there's a band playing in the background or something like that.
And it's not something that over time it seems to be recovering?
Nah, I think when your hearing's fucked, your hearing's fucked, basically. It doesn't seem as crackly as it used to. But, yeah, I think that's just what it is.
I mean, I remember in the heyday of me going to shows, like multiple shows a week, I remember it was like, when I went to sleep, it was, you literally heard that, blaring sound permanently, it just wouldn't go away. I have found that in the years since, nowadays I go to a handful of shows a year at most. It's not really an issue. I don't really hear it anymore. Yeah. What is interesting is these headphones that I'm wearing on their app, you can actually do a hearing test, and it'll show you exactly where your hearing drops off, like on the high to low spectrum. It shows you where your hearing drops off, like where you've got issues. And then the other thing that's fucking cool about this is it can compensate for where your hearing drops off by changing the sound signature of what you're listening to, which is nuts because it changes it and you hear the song. It's like, holy Jesus, stuff here that I've never heard before.
And that's sometimes what I struggle with a bit, like when you're doing mix reviews and stuff, and you get so many people like, I want to like say, it needs more top end in it or whatever. And someone's going, no, it needs more bottom end. And then I start thinking, fuck, is it just that my hearing's fucked and I'm like losing ranges? So I need those boosted. And am I trying to encourage this album to sound shitter for your average person?
Yeah.
And so it does get to the point. So, I mean, because I always work with Joe with recording all the time, it's kind of like, I just get to the point where I'm like, I just need to trust his ears. He's a fucking expert at what he does. So
I do admire people like that because I'm the same as you. I know what sounds good to me.
Yeah.
But even with like all my audiophile shit, like all the hi-fi stuff, I can't hear in the way that some people claim to be able to hear. I mean, they'll go, listen to the decay on that note, or listen to the resolution on that note. It's like, dude, I'm not listening by the fucking millisecond. I'm absorbing the song.
Yeah.
But I've often thought, like, if I were in a studio, like, knowing certain dudes, like you hear people say when they work with Eric Rutan, like he can point out, when you were like 3 milliseconds off on a beat. I can't do that. Not quite my tempo scene on Whiplash. It's like sounded perfectly fine to me. I don't know how you get that it's not your tempo.
See, I have it sometimes. Like Joe's like that, and he. A lot of the time, like if you're recording guitars with Joe, you'll tune your guitar to the tuner, and Joe's like, no, your D string's a little bit flat or whatever, and he'll go in by ear, and it's almost like Joe's ear is better than the tuner on the computer. You think, I don't know how the fuck you even hear that, dude.
Yeah.
And
I'm the same way.
And he's really good as well with I'll do a vocal take and I'll get to the end of it. I'm like, yep, that's the one. That was fucking great. And because I've done 10 takes and I'm like, yep, got it. That one felt perfect. And he's like, nah, it's shit. I'm like, what? You mean it's fucking shit? He's like, shit, listen back. And he puts it on and he's like, see, there, you're out of whack. Like, fuck. Like, how did you even like take that in while I was doing it? And he's like, yeah, it wasn't right. You weren't synced up to the click right or whatever. It's like, fuck. But I mean, but that's why I love working with him because he always.
I was about to say, you guys clearly have that kind of relationship where you can have that sort of open conversation with him. He can tell you this sucks or whatever the case may be.
And we're big on that with Psycroptic. It's like no one's ego gets hurt. It's like if you're fucking sucking, you don't you don't want people to gloss over and go, oh no, it's fine, and we don't want to hurt your feelings or whatever. It's like, no, it was shit. Fucking do it again. Like we're trying to get something great here. We're not here to make mediocre, you know.
Yeah.
And if you're, you know, and even like, you know, some ideas that you might have spent a lot of time on and you think it's the fucking greatest thing, and then, you know, you get in the studio and Joe might be like, yeah, no, I don't like it. It doesn't work. It's average at best. And you're kind of like, fuck. So, and you do learn to not form that attachment with it, because I think that's what it is with a lot of people why they fight in studios, because they won't give up on that attachment that they have to something that they've written. It's like, yeah, you might have spent fucking 2 hours working on that, but it is average. So you've just got to let it go and fucking try something different. And that's the beauty with working with those guys. Like, you can just openly speak your mind. If you don't like something, you can just straight up say, no, shit, go again. Do something different. Try this, whatever. Because we all do have the same mindset with it.
Did I ever tell you about my first semi-introduction to Dave Haley? It was way back when the Omenta put out Acasis, and I had Eric Mees on the phone. I was interviewing him for Chronicles of Chaos, and I fucking loved Acasis, but the drums to me sounded so good. It was I could not conceive of how a human being was playing like that. And I said to Eric, it's like, are you guys using a drum machine? Like, that's just it's just too good. It's just too perfect to be a human being. And Eric's answer was like, we definitely don't use a drum machine. His name is Dave, and I can assure you he's a human being. Yeah, that was my introduction to the legend that is David Haley. So I'm asking this question out of curiosity. You talking about, like, you know, retaking stuff, doing stuff differently. How often does he have to retake or redo stuff in the studio? Because I'm going to suggest probably not a lot.
No, he gets really OCD with shit sometimes. Like, I've been in there with, you know, sitting in the control room with Joe, and it's just fucking funny sometimes, because Dave will do a perfect take first go, and he's like, nah, it didn't feel right. I'm like, what do you mean it didn't fucking feel right? It sounded absolutely perfect. And he'll do it 10 more times and drive himself fucking insane, to the point where then he finally gets it and he's like, yep, that was the one. It's like, dude, we could A and B between that and the first take, and there's no fucking difference. You know, and he does. I mean, a lot of the time he just gets up in his own head with it, I think, where Dave's one of those guys who nothing that he ever does is good enough for him, if that makes sense. Like, he's always... He's like, we can play a show and he'll play, from what I can tell, a fucking great show. And you get to the end of it and he's like, nah, fucked up, played like shit. And I'm like, how the fuck do you think you played like shit? Like, it gets to the point where it's like, come on, you've got to fucking, you do have to get to the point where you ease up on yourself.
Well, I was about to say, where you relax on yourself a little bit.
Yeah. He's yet to do it.
It seemed like you guys had some fucking killer shows on that last run that you went on with Fallujah. Just from the photos, people that I knew that went to shows were saying, you know, it was absolutely incredible. Like, it was like this. They felt like there was something particularly special about those shows relative to, you know, anything else recently. Like, what was like? Tell me a bit more about what happened on that tour.
I just think with that tour, I mean, that was sort of coming out of COVID, and we'd been doing spot shows around the place. And I just think when that tour came around, everyone was just on fire. Like, we were all at the point where, you know, all of us had got ourselves really fit, really healthy leading up to that. And we'd released Divine Council, and we were all just fucking really hungry for it, I think, more than anything. Like, we went into it with the mindset of, you know, we want to, you know, I mean, after COVID, we came out of it and we're all in our 40s, you know, and kind of like, we just want to come out, and we don't want to be coming out of like a hiatus as a bunch of old men that have lost their knack for it. We wanted to come out and be people to look at and go, fuck me, these guys have got the fire of when they were like 25 years old.
Mm.
And so I think we all work very hard towards it. I mean, on that gym, we were on that tour, we're in the gym every day, and everyone's lifting weights, fucking running on treadmills, for an hour and a half before a show and all that sort of stuff. And I just think the whole morale, we were just so hungry for it, and I don't think we felt like we had something to prove, but we wanted to show that we were back, and we wanted to show that we were still in form, and we weren't, we hadn't lost our motivation for it. We hadn't lost our love for it or anything. If anything, now with age, we're kind of like, well, how much longer have we got in this machine? So let's just fucking make every minute count.
You're about the same age as me, though, aren't you? You're like 42, 43 years old?
Yeah, going on 42, so...
42. You're actually 2 years younger than me. So yes, I don't know how you feel about this, but this is definitely something that's set in my 40s, and it feels like it gets worse every year. Every year, I kind of set out as much as I possibly can to battle age.
Yeah,
there's nothing there's nothing that's going to get me fired up faster in the gym than seeing some fucking young blood. Pushing a weight that he thinks is heavy, and then I will make a point of sitting next to him and go, "All right, you little cunt, let me show you. Let me show you what's heavy." So.
Yeah, and I'm the same, because I do like fucking no end of long distance running. So I'm at the point where I around my local area, that's sort of like a big waterfront sort of area. It's sort of bush, not really highly populated, but there's a big waterfront area that you can run along and stuff. And I'm one of those dudes, because you get a lot of young people out running of a morning, and I'm like, fuck these cunts. I'm out there, and it can be fucking freezing cold, pissing with rain, windy. I'm fucking shirtless, fucking running 20 Ks, and I'm like, fuck these little pussies. I'll fucking show them what's for, And it's that whole thing. It's just like, I think if you accept that, I'm getting old, I'm going to get sore, I've got, the fucking life's going downhill, I think that's when you're fucked. I think when you start getting older, you're kind of like, no, I'm getting older. I've got to just fucking kick ass as hard as I can for as long as I can.
The thing is also, I think, a lot of folks, and especially in 2024, they'll either pretend not to understand it, or they just are not of that. They're not cut from that cloth. Men of a certain ilk, you just can't, at some point you're going to have to give up to the younger lions and the pride, but your mind instinctively battles it to such a degree. Yeah. You'll do anything possible to delay the inevitable day that you're going to have to do that. I know in my 60s, I'm going to be able to sit there, leg pressing 500 kilos or something like that. But right now, I don't give a fuck if my knee pops out. I will continue to do it.
Well, that's like with me, like I've got with my skeletal system and stuff, like I've got scoliosis quite bad in my back. I've got, problems with the arches of my feet and stuff. So at the moment, I've got one of the arches on my feet. It's like got a fucking huge swollen tendon in it, but it's like, I'm not going to not run. So I'm just, instead of doing 20 Ks a day, I'm going to do like fucking 8 or 9, and that sort of thing. And it's like, my back's fucked, but I'm still going to get on the fucking pull-up bar and do 40 pull-ups, and I'll do what I can so that's practical, but I'm not going to just say, no, I'm just going to sit on the couch now or anything like that. I'm not going to fucking give up on work or anything. So it's kind of like, you do what you can.
When did you develop scoliosis? When did those ailments start to set in?
Well, I had a lot of problems when I was very young. My mother dragged me around all sorts of specialists and stuff, and ended up being a school nurse that looked at it and said, you've got one leg longer than the other. The arches of your feet have zero support. I've got hypermobility in my ankles, so there's no support in them either, and you got scoliosis in your spine. And I had
and how old were you at this point?
8 or 9. So I had when I was really young, I had a lot of pain to deal with and stuff. But then I got the what they call orthotic inserts in your shoes and that sort of stuff, and that straightened me out for a lot of years. And it was only really, I haven't had much pain until probably the last 12 months. It's got to the point where, like, because it can be a degenerative thing, and I didn't sort of put 2 and 2 together that was the cause of my back pain. I thought it was just work and getting older and all the rest of it. And then it was only a few weeks ago I went to a podiatrist to get all my to get some new inserts for my shoes done, and she's like, "Yeah, you probably should get your spine checked, basically, because that's going to be causing you some serious pain." And so I'm in the process now of getting scans done and seeing what can be done to fix it. But it's kind of like, well, you can't just lay down and give up on everything because of something like that. So I'll still be out there fucking throwing the head round on stage and all the rest of it. Yeah. While I can, I will.
I was going to say, like, how do you manage that pain? Oxycontin.
And that's one thing I don't take painkillers at all or anything. It's not like agonizing pain, but it's just constantly there, and it's like this constant stiffness because the muscles either side of your spine are always trying to compensate for the curve and the way your spine works. So it's just always stiff. Winter's worse. You obviously, if you're sitting down for too long, you're not going to, in the cold or something like that, watching kids soccer, you're not going to just jump straight up and expect that I can fucking go and run 50 meters or something like that. You got to you got to loosen it up a bit first. But I mean, I make it work, and it is what it is.
How did that affect you when you were a kid? Because I imagine you went out on the rugby field and doing stuff like that.
Yeah, I used to do a lot of skateboarding in my teenage years and stuff. But by that stage, I wasn't really having so much pain from it. It was mainly in my really young years, and like I can't remember a lot of it because it was from 3 years old to 8, 10 years old or something like that. But my mum said to me I didn't used to sleep a lot, and I'd be waking all night and all that stuff. And she said the worst thing she said was that no doctors actually believed that there was anything wrong with me. They thought I was just turning it on. So, yeah.
But you guys have got private medicine in Australia, don't you? It's not government medicine, not government doctors and things like that. Because I can imagine something like that happening here. I have a friend who passed away a couple of years ago. He had gone to the doctors and said, "Listen, I've got this pain every time I cough. It's something my body doesn't feel right. Oh, it's probably just a bug. Come back and see us in 9 months' time." Goes back in 9 months' time, same deal. Like, it's not gone away. I'm still coughing. If the pain feels worse. Oh, well, we think it's flu. Sends him away. Comes back, and they get to, I think this is like 18 months in, or 18 months post the first.
Yes.
They finally do their various tests. Oh, by the way, you've got advanced stage lung cancer. There's nothing we can do for you. You're going to die in 3 weeks' time.
18 months ago, they
died 2.5 weeks later.
Fuck.
So I'm not the biggest fan of the socialist medicine, medical system of the United Kingdom. But that's why I was just curious when you said it's like people didn't believe you. Is it what's the setup like over there?
Where we are in Tasmania, the health system's pretty shit. So we got the Medicare system here. So majority of stuff you get's free through the government.
Yeah,
but like in Tasmania, because we haven't got a big population, that's not a big, I suppose, not a real big draw card for doctors and stuff to stick around. So there's always a shortage of doctors. Like if you need medical help, you're gonna be waiting fucking long time. So it's pretty shit. realistically. I mean, I had, so I had, this was probably 18 months ago. I had some pretty serious neurological issues, and trying to get that fixed or trying to get that sorted through the Medicare health system down here was an absolute fucking nightmare. So I had, so basically the doctors basically thought I had epilepsy, and so there was a lot of testing and stuff that I had to go through, and they kept basically forgetting to put my referrals in, and there was endless amounts of, we had to follow up. We couldn't get hold of the neurologists, and we ended up having an absolute shit fight with it. So, and that dragged on for 8 months. All my medical records got fucked up. I had my license taken off me for, it was 8 months, which it should have only been like 3 months or 4 months or whatever. So so I ended up with a massive ordeal on my hands there.
Jesus,
so,
fuck, man. I mean, it's dude, that's rough. And have you gotten that under control now? Is that at least
everything's sorted. So it ended up. So I was having these seizure-like episodes. They just came out of nowhere, and it was bad for a few months, and they just couldn't figure out what it was, and it cleared up after a while. So I'd had some issues when I was a kid with a similar but different sort of thing, and it just cleared up and went away. And so they basically put it down to, it's just one of those things. People have these strange episodes happen to them. There's not a lot we know about the brain, but with all that stuff, it's just kind of like, basically my livelihood was almost put on hold while it was all going on. And then you got the medical system failing me and not reading like things like the guidelines as to me having my driver's license and stuff properly. Whereas I'd read them, and I'm trying to point out to them, this clearly states that I should be able to drive a vehicle, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, no, we don't think you can. And we ended up going through all sorts of shit. I had trips over to Melbourne to get stuff sorted. And it was absolute fucking shit fight, really. And after that, I lost pretty much all faith in the public medical system in Tasmania, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
But
well, dude, like I've said on the podcast many times before, not to get too political, but the principle of any of my political beliefs is, if you think of it as a pyramid, the baseline is government is completely and utterly incompetent and incapable of delivering any even remotely complex service to a degree of efficiency and to a degree of efficiency and correctness. I'm struggling for the word now. That the private sector could. So any time that they, and this applies to medical, applies to a vast number of different things. Managing the power grid, you can go down the list of essential services that they can fundamentally not do it. So any time that there's any political conversation, to me, if a politician is proposing more government as a solution, that's an instant no for me. I would not vote for someone. I wouldn't support someone like that.
Nah.
Everything else in terms of other policies, etc., that just goes on top of the pyramid. But the baseline pyramid is, if you're saying government should do more when they've demonstrably fucked up just about everything they've ever put their hands to, well, sorry, that's not something that's ever going to chime with me.
And that's the thing. I mean, if they're spread that thin that they can't pull off what they're meant to be looking after properly now, don't fucking give it more.
That's the thing. It's like, so guys, you have the public coffer. There is newspaper reports every other day about how you squander the money. If this was a public organization that where CEO was blowing money the way that you guys do, and just every single time they got caught out, sorry, we made a mistake, you'd be fired.
exactly.
So,
I mean,
and yet you guys keep getting away with it, and then come election time, you're going, well, if you give us a chance this time, you give us another chance, we're going to fix this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this,
right,
reform, restructuring, but it all amounts to the same thing. Reform. Well, we're going to create another committee, and we're going to create another group, and we're going to create another think tank, and we're going to employ more consultants. It's like, guys, you are literally telling me, and most people are too fucking stupid
more money away.
You're literally telling me we're going to take more of your money and pay other people to do the jobs that, frankly, we're supposed to be doing in the first instance.
We're already getting paid for.
Exactly. But secondly, we all know it's not going to lead to a better outcome. So it's just, it's fucking mind blowing. Like I said, not to not to get up my soapbox on that, but just your story there just reminds me of it again. It's nuts. I mean, over here in the UK, it's a fucking roll of the dice if you get sick now. Literally, if I get sick, I would move to South Africa. That's how severe it is. Because at least in the private medical in South Africa, I know I'd be fine. Over here, you've got waiting times for people who have cancer of 9 months for any sort of treatment.
Yeah, and you could be fucking dead in that time.
Yeah, and this is why I say it is a roll of the dice if you get sick. Yeah, and the fact that a fucking third world country like South Africa can show up the United Kingdom, where you have our imbecile chancellor, doing his recent budget, budget presentation and going on about how the NHS is one of the main reasons why you're proud of living in the UK. It's like, you've got to be fucking kidding me.
No, it's just fucking ridiculous.
It's like having an uncle who's a hobo, and you say that guy, that street dweller, he's one of the main reasons that I'm proud to be part of this family.
Yeah, that's like that was the thing with me. It's like the way I looked at it. I mean, I was just trying to get all my shit sorted straight away, and it was just dragging on, and there was mistake after mistake, and it's kind of like, let's take a look at things here. Like, I mean, at the time I was 40 years old, very fit, very healthy. Aside from this issue I was manual labor, self-employed, small business owner. It's like, aren't I exactly the person that you should be like putting all your focus on, keeping me working? Like, I'm the exact person that you guys need, to keep this country rolling, to keep the tax dollars coming in and stuff. And it's just like, sorry, mate, you're kind of on your own. There was no offer for help. Like, I ended up buying a fucking push bike to ride to work. I'd get my dad would drive me in my car on the first day of a job. So I was still working this whole time. My dad would drop all my tools off on a job, and then I'd be riding my bike to and from work every fucking day. It's like, come on, can't you fucking do anything to try and at least help make this easier or speed the process up so I can get to work at a proper capacity? And, just
Thomas Sowell's description of government is exactly correct, right? He says, anytime you vote for a politician, you're essentially saying, I'm choosing this person to allocate public resource. I'm choosing them as a linchpin for allocating public resources. And exactly as you just said there now, if they're incompetent at service delivery, how on earth are they going to be competent at allocating the money in the public offer? So to your point, you're exactly the kind of person they should be investing in. You're exactly the person who frankly deserves help and deserves support. You've put into the system for 20 years or however long you've worked of your life, and when you need the system, it lets you down to that degree. I mean, that's not right.
I had a big problem too. So I mean, I've got private sickness and accident insurance, like through my business, but I had the issue where my neurologist, she said to me, because I said, there's got to be some sort of like assistance, this is fucking ridiculous. I've never claimed a government check or anything like that in my life, and there's got to be some sort of assistance for me. And she's like, no, there's nothing there, because you can work, but you just can't drive. And I'm like, but isn't that the same thing? If I can't operate a vehicle, how can you say I can work? And I said, can't you sign some sort of documentation so that I can at least claim my sickness and accident insurance. I said, I am fucking sick. You've told me that. There's things wrong with me. And she's like, no, because you're fit for work, but you're just not fit to drive a vehicle. And I said, so they put me in this fucked up position as well, where basically because I couldn't operate a machine, I couldn't drive a vehicle, but yet I'm allowed to work, but I'm a house painter. So I've got to be working on ladders, on scaffolds, setting up access equipment nonstop. So you're telling me I'm okay to do that? And she's like, yeah. And I said, I reckon my public liability insurance is going to tell me that if a scaffold collapses on a car with someone in it and kills them, I think I'm going to be fucking liable for that. And my insurance is not going to cover it because it's a pretty easy out for them. And she's like, no, it's fine. It's fine. It's just like, what the fuck?
We'll roll the dice on the scaffolding.
Exactly. Yeah. But it was kind of like, I was forced into this fucking shit situation where I was like, basically I had to keep working because I couldn't get any other sort of financial assistance. But yet to work, there was that risk of, I wasn't well. Had I made a mistake, which I was making a lot of mistakes at the time with everything, it leaves me liable to be sued basically. And it's just like,
and not to mention the stress levels increasing, that can't be, for a family man to be in a position where the stress level is going up. That's not healthy either.
No,
it's not healthy for your family. It's not healthy for you.
No, it was a pretty shit situation.
No, dude, that's fucked up. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm glad, and I'm glad at least it sounds like things are.
And I mean, everything's good now. Yeah, I mean, everything's good. I mean, once we got to the point where my wife just said, "You're not fucking going to the hospital in Tasmania anymore," and we got referred to a hospital in Melbourne. We got everything straightened up. Fucking quick sticks. They got my license back to me. They're like, yeah, no, look, there's everything's cool, and they straightened everything out. But yeah. Oh, pardon me. It was a very long and drawn out process. That's for sure.
Yeah, not to go too deep or too personal, but you mentioned your wife there. So one of the things as well that when we were talking about like male mentality earlier, I hate the idea. Like even when I've got the flu, I can't stand it because I don't like appearing weak in front of my fiance, because it's not because of any stupid like male pride thing. Like I do believe in my role as protector. I mean, I genuinely do. Like I do feel like I need to be the one who's seen to be strong. But I think it's a very beautiful thing when, like as you say, your wife sounded like she clearly interceded and was there to support you and there to help you out. And I've never had that issue with Paige, but it's a thing that weighs on your mind as a man. It's like, I don't want to be in this position where she's the one that has to be helping me out. I should be the one helping her out.
Yeah. No, she when the whole thing happened though, she was kind of like, fuck these cunts. I'm going to get this straightened out, and that's that, and she went into, I mean, by the time she stepped in, I was pretty broken from the whole ordeal. So, yeah, dude. Well, like I said, man, I'm really sorry to hear that. But the flip side is, in amidst all of this, you managed to write a Domination Campaign album, which is excellent. And then you also participate in, which I was fucking massively surprised by, but you'll participate in, at least so far this year, one of the best black metal releases of 2024. I mean, that Perma Fog album, I remember seeing, like, when I was on holiday, I saw a video of you. I didn't even know about the project. I saw a video that you posted on your not Facebook, on Instagram, I think, about it. Then I went to the Facebook account and I listened to like a little clip of the band playing live. I was like, Jesus Christ, this is brilliant. And then you sent me the record. I was like, holy shit, this is good. Yeah, it's been one that was, so with Perma Fog, it's kind of been on the works for, I think it was like 2016, 2017 or something. So that was with basically the guys I sort of grew up with down here in Tasmania and, been kicking around with since I was a kid. you know, aside from the Psycroptic guys. So they're the sort of the guys that we've all been, you know, hanging out with, you know, the guys that are in Permafog, guys that are in Psycroptic. You know, we're all sort of intertwined and that since we were kids. But so with Permafog, it just started as me, Ryan, the other guitarist, and Lenny, the singer. We just kind of formed it as something so that it'd get us hanging out more. We're like, we all like black metal. We can all play. Ryan hadn't played in a band for fucking years. Lenny had never played in a band, but he'd always sort of just spoken about he wanted to sing in a black metal band or something like that. So we're like, let's fucking do it. I could play drums a little bit. So I was actually drumming in the band to start with. Mm. And then it kind of grew where we realized with my drum skills, we were kind of very limited on what we could do. Because I mean, I was fucking shit at absolute best. Mm-hmm. So we did like a 3 or 4 song demo that I drummed on, but then so one of our other close mates, Ben, he was a really good drummer, but hadn't played in a band for years. So we're like, fuck, why don't you come in and, you know, and start doing it. And we started writing a few more songs, and then Dave, the guy that plays bass, he used to play bass in, do you know, Aussie band called Portal?
Yeah.
So Dave, our bass player, he used to play bass in Portal, but he moved down to Tasmania. So I'd sort of known him for years as well, and I just talking to him and say, "Hey, you want to join this black metal band I'm doing?" He's like, "Yeah, I guess." Sent him the stuff, and he was like, "Fuck, that shit's actually really cool." I kind of, for some reason, thought you were going to send me something half-assed. And I was like, "Yeah." So we kind of had a full lineup, and we got writing and stuff for a while, and then we started recording the album. I'm going to say about 5 years ago, and it just, we were really sporadic with it. Like I recorded my guitars, and then, you know, some of the bass was done, some of the second guitars were done, you know, and it was done over such a long period of time to the point where we were starting to think, fuck, is this ever actually going to get finished? And then, it was only, I think it was probably about 6 or 8 months ago, Ryan, the other guitarist, finished mixing the album, you know, to the point where we're all happy with it. And we just kind of got put on hold, and we never did fuck all until we did a show just before Christmas. And then everyone kind of got motivated on it again. We're like, fuck, you know, it's good that we're hanging out again. The social side of it more than anything was great. And then we were like, fuck, well, we've got this whole album and got the artwork done. And then, it was only the other week. We were kind of like, well, we've got it all there. Let's just figure out. We'll just upload it ourselves. Fuck doing labels and stuff.
I was about to say, you guys never put it out to labels, because I was very surprised that it hadn't been picked up by anybody, because it's fucking superb.
We were just at the point where we were just like, you know what? If we go to a label with it, we're going to get put in a queue with a pressing plan, you know, and like I've had so many albums with massive wait times, you know, to the point where like the Domination Campaign album, the last one, that was finished like a year and a half, 2 years ago. And so it was kind of like, by the time it came out, it wasn't fresh, it wasn't exciting anymore. You know, so you kind of, I don't know, you got to revisit it in a certain way to excited about it again. Whereas this one, we'd been playing, we'd just finished it, and we're like, we're all hungry, we're all excited for it. Let's just upload it and put it out ourselves. And, you know, if down the track someone wants to do a reissue and put it out on vinyl or whatever, well, they're welcome to. We're cool with that. But we just wanted to get it out to the world and to see the feedback we've been getting from it. I don't think the other guys kind of expected to get a lot of good feedback about it. And now seeing that the motivation amongst the camp's pretty fucking high. You know, we've just been in the studio at Ryan's place, writing more songs, getting, you know, starting to put new songs together for a new release and stuff. So it was, I think just going for the self-release thing, I think it was really good for morale within the camp as well.
Well, the thing is, I mean, you're not in bad company there. Obviously, you know, the Werewolves guys, they did Faustian, dropped that as a event release, superb record. There's probably a couple of things in terms of you know, self-released stuff that we can talk about offline, because I think that your Domination Campaign, the most recent album, I think it highlights a possible issue there that. Yeah, I don't know what the solution is there. I get the business side of things from a label perspective, but I honestly think increasingly, unless the music industry finds a way to change, to unfuck itself, is probably the best phrase. They're going to make that. I mean, this has been something that a lot of people have been talking about for ages. I remember Peter Dolving raving about it in a column on Metal Hammer, like, you know, almost every other month. But many record labels will make themselves obsolete, because they'll force more and more bands to find outlets for their music that don't involve labels, and then people are going to say, "Well, what do I actually need you guys for? We can get a booking agency to book our tours. We can put our own music out, and by the way, there's also a network of, you know, not only our social media online, but, you know, the growing influence of podcasts like this one, that when they latch onto something and they like it, they can just blow it up with the people that listen to their shows."
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, and it's in a weird place at the moment. I think the music industry, I think bands are still at the point where they need the reach of a record label to an extent. They need, I mean, you look at, if you're signed to a label like Nuclear Blast or one of, you know, your Metal Blades or one of the big boys, you've got, as soon as you sign to it, you've got a built-in large reach. No matter what, you've got that built-in audience, I guess you'd say, and the big social media followings, which when you're trying to grow a band from scratch, you know, things like that are very good. But yeah, I think the thing where things are going to struggle, I mean, you've got labels that are struggling to make money, I would assume anyway. I could, you know, I mean, the way that vinyl's getting popular again, I think's the only thing that's really fucking, you know, that's the last clutch at it, really. But yeah, I don't know what the answer is, and I don't know what the music industry is going to look like soon. I mean, you've got the thing that's always hard, I guess, for bands is, like me with Domination Campaign, trying to finance studio time, recording, all that sort of stuff, because I personally don't know how to record, mix, and master an album. I have to employ, you know, Joe to do that, and then you've got to find the money for that. And if you're trying to do that independently, it's a lot of outlay. You know, you're looking anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000, and then that's a lot of money to get back with T-shirts when you're an unknown band as such. And so it's this weird, you know, it's this hard thing at the moment that people are trying to navigate.
Well, that's also, you know, again, it's, if you just bring it down to economics, I keep making the comment about, you know, heavy traffic, but just think about this year and what's coming out this year and how much the average person has to spend on music and T-shirts and, you know, show tickets and stuff like that. Most people are, again, in certainly in the West, I'm assuming everywhere, they're demonstrably not doing as well as they did 4 years ago. Inflation went up to them, you know, slowing wage growth, et cetera, et cetera. Increased taxes, you know, we can go down that rabbit hole again. But I mean, they don't have a huge amount of money to spend on stuff. So if you think about a year where you've got new albums coming out by Ulcerate, Iblis, and I've heard now Paradise Lost's new album is apparently due this year. You've got Werewolves, you've got Perma Fog. You know, the thing is, like, there's so much coming out at such a clip. Like the last couple of weekends, it's been at least 4 or 5 records, and then normally somebody within the Legion will send me like another 2. Like, hey, do you need to check this out? Do you need to check this out?
Yeah.
Where the fuck did that come from? So people don't have money to spend on music and stuff like that they used to. At least because the pie isn't growing bigger. There's not as much to go around as what there was previously. And I'd also say with the vinyl thing, I feel like it's expensive, but it's also generational. I don't see a bunch of young people running out buying vinyls.
No.
In the same way that I don't see a bunch of 18-year-olds at shows. There's quite a lot of bands that I like where if you did a check of the average age of the audience, I'd be surprised if it's any lower than 37, 38 years old.
Well, I don't know. I'd beg to differ with that a little bit. Well, in Australia anyway, we just went out with Obituary in January. We did a Australia New Zealand tour with them with Psycroptic, and we were absolutely gobsmacked at the amount of people. And I mean, you're talking Obituary headlining. Those guys are in their 50s now.
Mm-hmm.
Been around forever. You wouldn't think they had a young fan base. Even same with us, being we're all in our 40s, been going for.
That's because you're a heartthrob, though.
Exactly. I mean, I keep it fit in the gym, but
yeah, you keep it tight.
Yeah, I was really surprised. Like a lot of the guys coming up to us at the merch desk and stuff, and they're like, I fucking love your stuff, And you're like, how old are you? And they're like, 20, 21, 18, 19.
That's cool.
And
that's very cool.
There was like probably a quarter or maybe less would have been under 25 or under at a lot of those shows, and we were gobsmacked. And it was kind of like, we're older. Like, our band has been going for longer than these kids have been alive, and it's just fucking amazing that they're discovering us and they're coming out, and you think, fuck, they've probably heard us from their parents or something,
Yeah, without a doubt. No, that is cool. I'm actually, one of the things I think about when I think about the age thing is, I was the last time that I saw Akakaka, which was a couple of years ago, I was standing there with my mate Andre, and that was the exact question that we asked each other. It's like, just have a scan of this audience. Like, how old do you think the average person is here? So it's good to hear that there's other bands where there's a change. And I mean, in fairness, I'm trying to think how many younger people were. The last show that I went to was Paradise Lost and My Dying Bride. The youngest person there was my daughter. How many other young people were there? I'm not so sure.
Average age would have been like 45, wouldn't it?
Yeah, like a dude. She loved it though. She absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome.
She didn't know what to make of My Dying Bride, and then when Paradise Lost started, the first two songs played, and she was like taking it in, and then from the third song, fucking arms were going, hanging on her seat and stuff like that. She loved it. I felt so bad for the people who sat next to us, because they gave us room to come and sit down next to them. And afterwards, I said to the lady, listen, I'm so sorry if she was, going on a little too much. And the woman is like, no, whatever you do, take good care of her. She's fucking awesome.
bring her to more shows. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I would have quite liked to have taken her to Chelsea Wolfe, because she quite likes Chelsea Wolfe, but she played at Heaven, or is playing at Heaven, so that's an 18s only. But we'll see when there's another opportunity to take her somewhere. But I think Paradise Lost is a good introduction, because the music is relatively accessible if you don't know it. If you take her to see something brutal, it's going to sound like noise to her if she doesn't know that.
Yeah.
But that was a fun experience. But I've gotten us off track just around the age thing. I think with the vinyl thing, because that touches on the audiophile side of one of my other big hobbies and passions. Yeah, I think the danger with that industry is that industry will make itself redundant, because they don't have there's not enough brands that offer a gateway for people to experience great sound. And so at an affordable price. Yeah. And so because there's not that, you're not going to convince the average person, hey, you know what would be a great idea? Spending $5,000 on speakers. Yeah. Because I can tell you, once you get hooked, your perception of value starts to shift dramatically. Like, I remember my first setup was it's a company called Q Acoustics. It's a reputable brand name, not elite of the elite. Yeah. The Q Acoustics setup, I paid £1,200 for the 5.1 surround and with a subwoofer and a receiver, and I thought that I'd spend a lot of money. My next setup, after the bug properly bit me, because as I got a taste of what decent sound was like, I was like, okay, because I'd had a sound bar like most people, but this was a step up. After I got a taste of that, my next setup was Bowers & Wilkins speakers. I bought them secondhand for £2,000. And then my next setup after that was substantially more. And my next setup now, my whole entire setup from that Bowser Wilkins setup with the amps that I use, my speaker cables cost more than that. So that I have now. So you definitely like you find ways to stretch the budget, and you also have your view of what's worth spending money on changes dramatically. But my point is there's not enough brands in that scene or that industry that create that gateway for people. I think Kef is the only one to do. They've got a really cool set of wireless speakers that they cost about. I think they've just put out a cheaper pair now. It's about £599 over a year, it's fucking great value for money.
Yeah.
The step up from that is about $2,000, and that's got its own line stage for a vinyl. You can have a decent setup for $2,500.
And that's the hard thing though, because with kids that haven't grown up with that actually purchasing music and the whole physical thing, like for them to spend money and get a good sound system to start with, and then you've got to convince them that every time they want an album, there's another $50, for the vinyl or something. And in their eyes, they're like, why would I do that when I can go and buy a $50 Bluetooth speaker and just subscribe to Spotify for fucking $100 a year? Yeah. And then I've got everything.
A $50 hit of crystal meth, and that's all I would contain me.
So I mean, I started collecting vinyl. I mean, I was an avid CD collector, as you know, from my really young years, from when I was like 10 or 11 through to probably 10 years ago. And then, so it was only probably about a year ago. One of my mates, Lenny, the singer out of Perma Fog, he's got a huge vinyl collection. He's right into it. And I used to always go around to his place and, we'd have a couple of beers and, spin some vinyl and stuff. And he was like, you need to start collecting it, Pep. You need to start collecting it. And I was like, yeah, fuck it. All right. And so I started buying records, and then I got hooked on it. But the thing that I really found with it was I started attaching the value to my music that I did when I was a kid, if that makes sense. When I'd go through the process, I mean, vinyl, you can't just, it's not like a CD where you can just find anything you want in a store, and if you can't, you can get it ordered in. There's limited pressings. It's fucking hard to get hold of some albums on vinyl. So there's that search, like what we spoke about, like last time I was on, that you used to do when you were a kid, trying to fucking find this stuff, and so you've got the element of the search again. And then when you find it and it actually arrives, like the value you've got attached to that album, and because you've invested, $50, $60, $70 on it, you sit down, you put it on, you sit down, you enjoy it, you look through the booklet and stuff. And I've found that my love of listening to music has gone more back to what it was when I first started getting into extreme music. It's been great, and in my opinion, it makes all that money I'm spending on records, it just makes it worthwhile. It's like, fucking,
of course, because it's the utility that you're getting from it.
And I find that now that I've gone back to listening to music in the physical form, it's like, I appreciate it so much more. I enjoy it on a totally different level than just clicking a Spotify playlist or whatever. I mean, at work, I still do that because, I mean, you can't fucking take records to work or whatever. So when I go running, so I still use Spotify, and I still use that as a great tool to discover new bands, discover new albums. And you can almost test run things to see if you really like it. And then if you do, you're like, all right, now I've got to track down this on vinyl. And then when the vinyl comes, you've got a whole nother experience with it again of sitting down with the cover. And it's awesome.
I saw on Instagram you were rocking the Diabolical Summoning LP as well, the Sinister record.
That was one of the first ones I got.
It's one of my. It's a record I've evangelized on this podcast many times. That album actually crossed the sticks. Diabolical Summoning and Hate.
Yeah,
three of the most underrated death metal albums to ever be released. It should be a mainstay in everybody's collection.
It's funny actually because Lenny from Permafog, he'd never really got into the whole Diabolical Summoning or Sinister in general. And when I got that record, I was like, I'm going to take it round and put it on for him and see what he reckons. And that was that whole thing of we sat down, we put the record on. I mean, that cover is fucking awesome. And, you know, we're sitting there looking at the cover and it's like all matte and fucking the way that they did the packaging for it, it looks fucking amazing. And next thing he was sold, he's like, fuck, where'd you get this from? And he's online, he's ordered it and he's fallen in love with it as well now. And I mean, that was, fuck, I reckon that would have been the first or second album I would have bought on CD. And I've still got the original CD. Like I've lost or given away or whatever a lot of my CDs over time, but Diabolical Summoning's one that I've still got, the original one I bought when I would have only been 11 or 12 years old. And Onward to Golgotha, Incantation's the other one. That's another one I tracked the vinyl down pretty quick when I started collecting. So
yeah. Now, just on Diabolical Summoning again, if anyone wants a song to hook them, just listen to track 4, Sense of Demise. The breakdown where he says, like, as I fall down on my knees, raise my left hand to the sign of the horns. It's fucking brilliant. It's absolutely so brilliant. But, you know, sorry, you're going to say?
I was just going to say, just everything about that album, like it's got, like, yeah, for the time, like the things, just like the bass sound and just the production on it, and
it's so far ahead of its time. Like just the way they were doing like riffs, they were like, you know, you could on Sense of Demise, there's like a very clear hardcore influence on that song musically. But just everything about it is perfect. It's so sad to me that band never became the fucking powerhouse that they should have been. You know, they had massive issues with lineup changes, you know, constantly,
and that's where it all fell apart, I think.
Yeah, 100%. The three guys that were the main dudes on those early records, had they stuck together, you know, it would have been such a fucking. They could have been one of the biggest death metal bands on the planet.
And I mean, that was sort of like, they were one of the bands in that sort of real fucking glory time of the Dutch scene as well. Like you've got Sinister, Gorefest as well, with like False and Erase.
Not so much Erase, but
oh, come on.
You talk about like bad lyrics, the Erase lyrics. I went back and I listened to that again the other day, partly because like I think it's, you know, when we'd spoken about Death Is Just the Beginning 3, I went back and I was like, I checked out a lot of the songs.
I think Erase is actually on that.
Like it is the final video of the compilation, but it's bad. It's so atrocious. I mean, it's like second only to Scrolls of the Megaloth. So,
oh my god, fucking Mortification,
dude! Mortification was a huge band in South Africa because, like I've said this many times, I grew up in the final vestiges of old South Africa. And religion was a massive thing. They're massive, even for people in the metal scene, because they'd all grown up as Christians. They'd all grown up in very, very deeply conservative Christian households. So even guys that were getting into metal, they would avoid bands like Deicide because to them, like, you know, Mortification's a great alternative, and they would try and convince you of it. It's like this is the biggest load of fucking nonsense I've ever heard of my life.
On the 7th day, Noah sat down and had a coffee, or it's like, or Noah was a Noah, and
I don't know, but it's such an excruciatingly bad band. The main thing I remember was Scrolls of the Megaloth, because that was what everybody thought was, oh, listen to this, it's the most brutal song.
Yeah,
but awful, absolutely fucking awful. It's bizarre to me how they could ever have very seriously presented that song on the same video compilation as Leviathan. All those two Dismember songs, or that Conqueror song on that on that compilation, Daybreak. They got Pleasure of Molestations on there.
Yeah. Oh,
which, again, you hear the opening growl on Pleasure of Molestation when you're a young kid, and that is the most insane thing you've ever. I mean, it's like, hey, The Exorcist is real. The Demon Pazuzu is actually the vocalist for this band.
That Hypocrisy album's fucking awesome. That's another one I tracked down on vinyl as well. Obsculum, Obscenum, fucking yeah. All that old stuff. I don't know. To me, like, I still listen to so much of that stuff. Like those really early 90s greats, like I mean, I still listen to a lot of new stuff, but fuck me, like, I don't know, that stuff, even, you know, it's most of it's probably getting on to like 30 years old now. And
which is wild to think.
Yeah.
No, bringing it full circle, I think the thing that's blown my mind most about this AI furor recently has been the fact that it's old bands that are doing it. And I'm like, you guys come from a school where, you know, exactly as you and I just spent the last 15 minutes talking, this is the sort of passion that an album cover could create, could induce in a fan. Like, you know, we can go down the list of, you know, great album art. The cover for Hate, you know, I remember seeing that the first time, being, fuck it, this album can't not be one of the greatest things ever.
Yeah.
You know, I remember the cover for
Incantation album.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I remember the cover for Storm of the Light's Bane, like, you know, that sat on my wall. I was so fucking psyched just to get a hold of that poster. So how do these people think that putting out something that is clearly it's not even just that it's AI, it's that it looks like fucking dog shit. And they put that out and they go, this is acceptable. And by the way, I mean, even worse, if you're Patrick Mamelli, if you don't like it, you're wrong not to like it.
It's picking the fight with the fans and stuff.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, I mean, to me, even if I'd commissioned an artist, like, and I got that Dare Side cover back, or probably even worse, the Pestilence one back, and I looked at it, I think, even if I knew that an actual artist had sat there and done it, my first thing would be to say, look, I'll pay you for it, whatever, but I'm going to fucking bin it because it's a piece of shit anyway. It's like the fucking, I don't know, it's like a video games cover, you know, from, you know, like early
Diablo 2.
90s.
It's 100% Diablo 2.
Yeah, it's just that really fucking, I don't know. They just don't look good. Like, if they had got sent it and it was actually a really cool looking cover and they just didn't understand what was going on with the whole thing, because I mean, they're older dudes. They mightn't be in touch with, you know, social media and what's going on in this whole AI revolution. And you can forgive them for that and be like, oh, well, they didn't really get what was going on, but the cover looks really cool. But the fact is, the covers don't look really cool, so it looks
awful. And it's it's a band who has had reasonably good-looking album covers. Like Exitum, like if we talk about Pestilence, Exitum's album cover I thought was pretty cool. I thought that Hadeon's cover was pretty cool, even though they both look relatively similar. I'm a fucking massive fan of the Obsidio record. I thought Obsidio looked pretty decent. As a matter of fact, I think Obsidio actually looks very, very cool, like with the face under the you know, under that orb. But yeah, to then think that shite they put out was acceptable in the face of those, and that's not even looking at any of the earlier records. The thing that I found most egregious was the dude from Hour of Penance who said, you know, one day we'll just need to accept AI will be able to do stuff better than human beings. It's like, well, I strongly disagree with you on that. I think AI will be able to do repetitive tasks much more easily. But if we come back to the point of, you know, the feel in music, which I truly still believe is a tangible thing people can sense it. That's why certain albums are great and other albums are not. It's why a guitarist can be an incredible technical player, but you hold them side by side with a guy like Kirk Winstein or Matt Pike, and it's like, it's just not the same. You know, what comes of Pike's hands is fucking lightning. What comes out of this dude's hands, yes, it takes a hell of a lot of practice to get to that. It takes great training, but it's not. It doesn't do. You know, it doesn't give me those feels. So I completely disagree with that. I think when it comes to music, whether you want to start using AI to write your lyrics, and we spoke about the thought behind that a while back. Earlier in this conversation, I don't think that AI is going to be able to write good lyrics for you, because it doesn't come from the heart. Certainly won't be able to replace music. And if you do that with your band, I just think people are going to turn their backs on it, because what's there to inspire you? How do you connect with the human spirit through something that has been created by AI?
Well, and I think a lot of, like, you know, there's always that, I don't know, that special something with some bands that it grabs you. Like you may listen to an album and you're like, it's not the most technically proficient. It's not the greatest sounding. It's not this, it's not that. But for some reason, I just fucking love it, you know. And what it is, I'm a firm believer of. It's the personalities of the people that make it blending together, you know. And it's, you know, you can feel they're not a fucking dull bunch of humans that are playing it or whatever, you know. There's inspiration, and I don't know, and that magic comes across in it. But if you've got some AI doing it, I don't think a computer can replicate, you know, what 4 people in a room can do. You know what I mean?
Chance.
What they can create together, and it might, you know, and it's not always, like you say, it's not always the most precisely played. It's not always the best sounding recordings that grab you. So I just don't see how it's going to have that same thing. Maybe you'll find with younger generations that grow up with it, because they won't know different. Maybe I hope I'm wrong there, but you know, it's definitely not going to be fooling our generation. That's for sure.
No, not a chance. And I think I still have some degree of optimism for the newer generation as well. You know, Glenn Danzig said it to me once, and I agree with it. It's like, good music will always be good music. Doesn't matter what genre it's from. People will recognize good music and good art for what it is. But you know, you and I are both detail guys, and I think we take pleasure in discovering those details. And you know, let's take an album we both love. If we want to follow the analogy that you just said about it's not technically perfect. Battles in the North. How does AI recreate the opening to the record, where you've got the drums are kind of, you know, sort of doing a kind of a blast, but then it's like and it's just like, it's just complete and utter unhinged chaos done in such a fucking sporadic way. If AI is based around, you know, repetitive tasks and repeatable activity, there's nothing repeatable there, because whatever was going on when they recorded that, it's not something you can recapture, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, you get that. That's a perfect example of an album that just fucking grabs everyone because of the personalities of who makes it. Like, that album is full of mistakes. It's sloppily played, and the guitar sounds aren't great. All that stuff. It's probably fairly poorly recorded, but there's just some sort of chaotic magic happening. Like, if you straightened that album out and you went into the multi-track and you quantize the drums and you fix all the guitar mistakes and you fucking make it to a grid, you reamp it, you know, get everything sounding perfect, it's not going to sound perfect. It's going to sound like fucking rubbish, I'd imagine.
Totally. Sacrificial Suicide, another example of a song where during the guitar solo, you don't even hear the snare for like at least a couple of clicks. If they went back and they re-recorded that song and they gave it the full digital treatment, like fixed everything up, drummers to click, it would sound fucking awful. Because it wouldn't get that same emotional response out of you, because you're imagining, as a young kid listening to this, hearing, hey, I can't really hear the drums properly anymore. Maybe that's because Steve is so filled with the devil that at this point it's like, you know, the drumstick is just flown out of his hand. Yeah, exactly, because he's assaulting the drums with such intensity. And you can't repeat that with a computer.
Nah, and I mean, and that's the beauty, and that's why I think I always go back to the old school death metal and black metal, because there's just something about it with that whole just fucking unhinged thing where it's just guys just in a room fucking going for it, you know? Like, I mean, modern recording, you've almost got to do tricks to try and get it to sound like that, just because of the way studios and stuff are now with all the digital stuff. It's not, you know, with the old tape studios, it was like you get in there, you've only got so much tape, you've only got so much time, you can't drop in, you can't fix stuff, you just got to get it right. And, you know, every take's going to have nuances, it's going to have mistakes, it's going to have this, that, but it's like, well, you can't get in there and fix HD. So there is just that chaoticness to all that old school stuff, which is just fucking what makes it so magical.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I had meant to say this when I was doing my comments, my recommend. I wouldn't even call it a review. My recommendation of the Permafog record, but I say this as a massive compliment to Lenny and actually to the band in general. You know what the album reminds me of? Endeavours from Norway, which is one of Telok's projects. I don't know whether you ever spent any time listening to the High Heat.
Never listened to it. I did hear you say that the other day, and I did mean to check him out because I haven't never actually listened to it.
Genius.
I've heard the name.
Now, go back and listen to the High Heat Licks Against Heaven. It came out in 2017. It's fucking fantastic album, but it's got there's similar vibes to me. Like, it almost like you guys are like the successors to Nadinger, because it seems like Telok is too busy with Mayhem to focus on doing anything more there. But
we had it with Lenny. We had that whole thing because he's the first one that will tell you, I'm not a musician. I don't understand timing and all that stuff. It's more he learns his stuff through repetition, going over it. So I'd always lay down a guide vocal track for him to sort of follow and do his thing to. And the greatest thing about it with him, he wouldn't lock to the tempo quite as much. So he would be sort of wavering around. And that's what I was really trying to encourage with him, to sort of keep it loose and keep it sort of free flowing and stuff. And it came out awesome, I think, because of that. And that's like for me to try and do vocals that way where it does sort of waver and stuff, I find it really hard because always, with Psycroptic playing to click tracks, or the tempos are always perfect. I've just got in the habit of I always do just lock in and and sing it perfect. Whereas with working with Lenny, like sort of producing his vocals, I had such a good time with it because it was just like some sections he'd make these weird mistakes, but they'd sound so perfect. It just gave a really good flavor to it, and it was just like, it's not perfect, whatever, but we're using it. It's perfect for what we want, for the vision of how I want your vocals here and stuff. So it was really fun doing all that stuff with him, just because just the change of approach from how I've always had to do stuff with Psycroptic.
On the topic of black metal, two other things I wanted to ask you. One, if you want me to edit this out later, I can do it. But your project, is it it's not common knowledge?
Nah, but it's not a big secret.
We can share it on the show.
Yeah,
so you've got your own black metal project
that
you are going to be dropping at some point.
Yeah.
And
Storm,
which is great because there's that reference.
To the point.
there's the reference. There's the insinuation there as well. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention, Matt Brizzo told me a fucking cool story about how you ended up on that Sick record. Basically, he just reached out to you after hearing you on the show and is like, asked whether you do it, and you said yes. I just thought that was the fucking nicest thing. I mean, like you're not in a small or insignificant band, in terms of your profile. You're a relatively high profile dude. But to be a willing participant in a very fucking cult underground release, I just thought was one of the best things I've one of the nicest stories. It warms the cockles of my heart because it still feels like it feels like there's still a community in the scene that at least embraces the same values that we all had in the 90s.
Yeah, and I think we're very big. I mean, what Dave Haley's like, he's very big in the underground stuff as well. He'll fucking play on anything he possibly can. And we still, we all love so much underground shit. And, I just think, Matt reached out. I mean, I'd already followed him with his art and stuff on Instagram. And I think we both sort of had that mutual thing where I appreciated what he was doing as an artist, and vice versa. And I think that was sort of a bit of it. And then when I heard
just pause for 2 seconds. I just want to shut the windows because I'm hearing some noise coming through there. So I'll be with you in 2 seconds.
Yeah, you're right.
I just didn't want to have my mother-in-law's voice coming through onto the podcast. It's one thing having the dogs in the background, but it's not the dogs, the dog and the cats. But there's limits to how much foreign cameos I can have on the podcast.
Oh, good.
But yeah, so you were saying about Matt?
Yeah, so I think we both had a very mutual respect for each other as artists, which. And, you know, when he reached out with the Sick stuff and I had to listen to it, and I think you may have played a song already. I got a feeling, actually, I may have heard a song on your show that you played, and I think I actually sent him a message and said it was sick and I really enjoyed it. And then I think he was kind of like, well, I was going to see if you wanted to do a bit on there. Or it was something like, it was very, very organic the way it all sort of came about. And he sent it through. Loved it. I mean, I love a lot of, like really underground stuff. So, I mean, it was just fun to be a part of it, you know, and I love making those connections with people in the underground, people that are just passionate about the same shit, you know, that we are. Like, I'm sure if I've never actually met Matt in person, but I'm sure if I did, we would sit down and we would probably bond over the exact same albums, you know, and all that sort of stuff. So it's kind of like, to me, it just seems like a no-brainer.
Well, so to wrap up, you know, because I said this to you on message, and I've said this exact same thing to Matt Wilcock. Like in Australia right now, there seems to be some sort of fucking unholy elixir that's being, you know, spread through the water supply. There's just a community of folks in Australia that just somehow just seem to be releasing music at the rate of knots, and you guys just don't miss. You know, Werewolves have put out 4 great records. I know the 5th record is going to be a fucking monster as well. I know the newer Bremlin record is an absolute fucking beast.
I heard as well.
You know, you guys have put out a bunch of stuff that's killer. Matt Brizzo seems to just constantly release new things that are awesome. That new Conspiracy X record.
Yeah, he sent me that the other day, actually. Right.
But yeah, so to borrow a phrase from Ric Flair, what's causing all this?
I don't know. I think like just within the, you know, the whole like crew of dudes that we sort of hang out with and play with, I just think everyone's just on fire at the moment. Me and Dave were talking about it. It would have been late last year when I sort of mentioned about how I was doing this Diabolical Bloodstorm EP. And he was like, this is so fucking sick because everybody is just fucking on 10 right now. Like everyone is just kicking ass. And I don't know if we've all got to the point where we're all in our 40s and stuff now. And we're like, fuck, you know, how many more albums and stuff have we got in us? So let's just go fucking 100%, just full at it and see how much output we can have over the next few years. So it's actually funny because on top of all the stuff that I've got released and in the pipeline, like with the Diabolical Bloodstorm EP, I've actually, me and Ryan from Permafog, we actually would have been about 8 to 10 months ago. We've actually got an album written as well, another full album written, which we're sort of in the process of looking at doing vocals soon and stuff.
What style?
Death, black, with I suppose a bit of ulcerate, nightmare, dissonant sort of stuff in it. Very heavy, very down tuned, but a lot of really fast, really slow atmospheric sort of stuff, and quite a bit of fast sort of black metal stuff all blended in. So that's yet to be named, but you know, that's probably about 50% there as well. We've just got to get the drums and vocals done on that. So that'll be another one that should hopefully come out somewhere in the next 6 months.
I really do think, like, in a decade from now, 15 years from now, I think people are going to look back at what's happened in the last, I was about to say what's happened over the last couple of years and what's happening currently. And they're going to go, that was like the Florida era. Like, you know, you had the Tampa Bay era for death metal in the 90s. This is Australia's Tampa Bay moment.
Yeah. And I mean, and outside of, the crew of middle-aged dudes that I hang out with, there's a lot of younger bands coming out. You see, what's that label? There's Brilliant Emperor, another label down here, and like Gutter Prince Cabal. I mean, I think Gutter Prince are doing sort of stuff from all over Australasia.
Yeah, they are.
Stuff.
So their whole
their
whole focus is the APAC theater. So they've unearthed some fucking killer bands.
Yeah. And you got like other bands like fucking. Have you checked out Golgothan Remains from? They're from Sydney, I think. Like killer stuff. And so there's so many fucking bands like that coming out as well. Like, I think like Australia had this really sort of golden era back in the early 90s where you had, a Bremlin were first coming out, and you had Damaged as well, Blood Duster, Misery, Crypt. There was a whole big good crop of bands there in the early 90s, but they never branched out of Australia really. Whereas I think what's going on now, it seems to be really reaching, out on the world stage, which it's just fucking awesome.
It was also, that's I think also a commentary on how communication and communication within the scene has changed as well, because I still firmly contend, I think Alchemist in particular could have been one of the biggest bands in metal had they not been from Australia. They would the quandary there is they would never have sounded like Alchemist had they not been from Australia, because it's such an essentially Australian band.
Yeah.
But had they been based out of the US or they'd been based out of the UK, they would have been exponentially bigger than they ended up being. I'll never forget seeing them play and thinking, what a fucking shame that they're in such a small venue, because they do not sound like a small venue band. They sound like they should be in a stadium.
Yeah, and they were a weird one because they did quite well out here, and I don't know, they just kind of faded away. I think they split up. I think Adam, what was the band? Was it Levitation Hex?
Levitation Hex.
Yeah, and he sort of started that, and I just think they didn't really push it or do anything with that either. And like that whole thing with those guys just sort of faded out, which is a bit unfortunate because they're very highly talented dudes.
Well, I had Adam on the show as kind of a farewell, because I'd always felt like, exactly as you just said now, it's such a shame that this just faded away. Like, at least you should put a cap on it and have a moment where a guy is able to talk about it, and kind of like the final episode of a great series or something like that. So I'm glad I was able to do that, but I did subtly but strongly try to encourage him to get back together with a band.
Yeah.
Like, dude, like now is the time to make another album. You guys are in a groundswell of interest in the Australian scene. There's everything has changed as far as how you're able to get your music and your art out to the world.
Yeah.
This is the opportunity.
And you can see that within like the Australian bands and stuff as well. Like so many more of them are out like touring in Europe, touring in the US. Whereas, when we first started doing it, fucking no one was. I think you had like Mortal Sin would do the odd bits and pieces in Europe, and there wasn't a lot. I mean, it was a fucking huge investment, and more than anything, it was near impossible to find the contacts you needed to actually get started. But the way things are now, it's so fucking awesome to see that so many bands. I mean, you look at a band like Thy Art Is Murder. I mean, they're fucking one of the biggest things in metal at the moment, and they're from down here. And bands like fucking what's the other one? Parkway Drive. And I'm not saying they're not necessarily bands that I'm into. Yeah, but I mean, they're sort of bands that come from that Australian sort of underground scene, and they managed to actually become some of the fucking biggest bands, headlining Wacken and stuff like that, whereas you never would have seen that back in the 90s, early 2000s, that sort of thing. So it's like, I suppose what I'm trying to say is we're not as isolated down here as what we once were.
No. Well, it's because the world isn't as isolated as it once was, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You live in a far-flung country, it doesn't necessarily mean people don't know who you are. By the way, just last thing as we wrap up, did you listen to that new Ulcerate single?
No, I haven't checked it out yet.
Holy fuck.
Yeah.
Mate.
It's going to be one that I'm going to need to sit down with, I think.
It's like from the first 10 seconds, you're just like, okay, you guys set a very, very high bar with Stare Into Death and Be Still. And it's like, well, we can smash that pretty easily.
The weird thing with
incredible.
With Ulcerate, putting out a single, though, it's a hard one because, like, with Stare Into Death, like the last one, it's an album that you can't really just put on one song.
No, I agree.
You know what I mean? Like it's you've got to sit down and listen to the whole thing. Whereas, so for them to try and pick, I'm assuming the new album will be very similar. For them to pick the point of, this is the single to use, but it'd be a hard one for them.
It's a song that's well suited to the single because it showcases in pretty short order almost everything they're good at. Riffs, drums, vocals, heaviness, then like atmosphere, darkness. But yeah, you'll see what I mean when you listen.
Yeah,
to it. It's going to be a fucking hell of an album. There's no doubt about that.
No, everything they do is.
No, well, absolutely. They were one of those bands. I remember when they first came out. You just knew there was something special about them.
Yeah, I mean, we used to play shows with them back in the early days. We'd played some shows with them in Auckland. We were signed to the same label as them for quite a while as well. And you could always see that there was something special about them, especially Jamie, the drummer. You watch him play, and you're like, fuck, he's on a totally different plane to 95% of drummers out there.
All right, brother. Well, thank you so much. It was an absolute blast catching up with you, and it sounds like we're going to be catching up plenty more in the months to come with all the new shit you've got lined up.
Yeah, I'll be sending albums your way soon enough.
Yeah, no, please do. I don't immediately get a chance to listen to everything because I want to be able to give it proper time and just work. So fucking hectic. So if you do send something out, I don't immediately respond. It's not because I think it sucks. It's just because I've not had a chance to properly digest it. So, yeah, dude, thank you very, very much. And like I said, we'll do it again very soon.
Sounds great. Cheers.
Cool. Take care, brother.
That is a track called My Will Be Done. The band, of course, Permafog. I was raving about their debut record, the self-titled album Permafog. On last week's episode of the podcast, I played a song then. This is the second track that I've played in as many weeks. I hope you guys are thoroughly convinced because, as I said, it is absolutely fucking brilliant. Great having Jason on. I want to thank him for his time. And, of course, I will post a link to all of his various enterprises, all of these various endeavors in the description to the podcast. So head over to the Domination Campaign, Psycroptic, and Permafog bandcamps, buy yourself some music, and let Jason know who sent you. Right now, if you believe that the only people that dislike season 4 of True Detective are those who suffer from toxic masculinity, then it's time for you to hit the bricks. As I welcome Sheriff Mike Scodotto for a very special installment of the Weekly News Rant.
A roundabout for judgment. And hang them where the world can see.
I have got the great Sheriff Mike Scodotto of Necromaniacs, also of Confusion and The Last Stand, joining us. But yeah, we were talking just before I hit record about, bands being researched and besmirched as, as they gain popularity or by certain folks. One thing, and we will get to the new 6 Feet Under, no doubt, because that's been one of the biggest releases of the last week. And considering all the shit that I've talked, we absolutely have to listen to the song. But like I was thinking about it today. Actually, there's certain Chris Barnes lyrics that I reflexively find offensive. Like as a parent. The Ice-T rap on One Bullet Left on the True Carnage, where he says, grab your little girl by the neck, pop her in the chest and throw her on the lawn. Like that to me, like that's distasteful at the very least. But I'm not running around saying, 6 Feet Under, never allowed to play again, promotes violence against women.
If you look at a lot of early death metal, of course, the first 4 Cannibal Corpse in particular, well, you're going to find some lyrics that today would be poo-pooed. But you know what? That's what death metal was. And to help to some people, that's what death metal is. Extreme music. You know what I'm saying? Extreme lyrics. I wouldn't want a censored version of old Cannibal Corpse because, someone 5-10 years from now digs up the records and deems them, unsafe. You know what I'm saying? That would be insane. But again, I think if you're creating this kind of music, death metal, black metal, you have to have a certain kind of, imagination, maybe a certain kind of thing that you gravitate to. And at the end of the day, it's for death metal, it's fiction. You have to look at it as fiction, as horror fiction almost, And that's kind of how I always looked at it, because before I found death metal, I loved Clive Barker and Stephen King, and you know what I'm saying? Like I liked horror novels as a younger kid first, and that's the bridge, I almost think, to death metal and extreme lyrics.
And the thing is, when you start to want to censor bands based on lyrics or lyrical content, it's a slippery slope, especially in metal. Metal has always been, I think by design, it's meant to be confrontational. And again, you can apply, you can apply the same principle that we just applied to 6 Feet Under, apply that to movies. I'm a massive horror fan, but I've never watched Cannibal Holocaust, and I've never watched it because I have no desire to see animals killed in a movie. I have a relatively low tolerance level for seeing animal cruelty, period. Don't want to see it in a movie, and therefore I've never had any interest in watching it. I'm not going to say no one is allowed to see this because it's going to inspire people to run around killing turtles, but it's just not for me. And I think that seems to be something that in the modern age, just it's gone away. It was an argument we made in the 80s during the PMRC era. If you don't like it, don't listen to it, was, kind of the mantra of the day. But, it feels like 30 years later, we've completely regressed at least as a society.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up Cannibal Holocaust. I actually, in 02 or 03, when it came out on DVD for the first time, myself and my old girlfriend, we saw it in the theater,
Mm.
and neither of us had ever seen it before. I had just read about it, and I think we didn't really know what we were in for. And wow, I mean, okay, you've never seen it, so I
No.
can't even
I mean, I know what it's
You know-
about, but I'm not seeing it.
just picture like a pretty crowded movie theater of people who also might not have ever seen it or saw it way years ago, and it was insane. And when it came out on DVD, there's the animal cruelty free version that you could click on the DVD menu, which of course I have partaken, because I myself, after seeing the original once or twice, decided, you know what, I don't need to see that again either.
Not quite your tempo.
Right, exactly. However, I do love the movie, and I think it's one of the most important horror movies of all time. I love the soundtrack. You know, I'm a Deodato fan, the director. Met people in the cast years ago at a HorrorCon, but I do understand that, yeah, the animal stuff can be a lot for a lot of people, and myself included. But if you don't like it, don't watch it.
100%.
That's, biggest takeaway.
100%. Just as a side note, I don't know whether you find this as you've grown older, but a lot of these movies from yesteryear that are being re-released, I find it very interesting to sit in the audience when I see them at a cinema and see the younger generation respond to them. And I'm wearing an Exorcist t-shirt right now. We watched The Exorcist over Halloween. They did a 50-year screening at a Curzon Theatre in Oxford. And Oxford is a student town, so, loads of younger people in the audience, and very clearly a lot of people that had never seen it. And a lot of people spent the first half hour, 45 minutes of the movie kind of sniggering through certain scenes and things like that. And I'd say maybe from about the crucifix masturbation scene, Wyatt, you could drop a fucking pin in that theater on the carpet and you would hear it. The people were just like, the theater was almost sold out, and I'd say it's probably about a 300 capacity theater. They were just pinned back in their seats, and they were glued to what they were watching, but you could sense palpable shock in that audience.
Well, the thing is, look, even though the movie's 50 years old, you take a 20-year-old who's never seen it and has grown up on the last few years of horror or whatever, and maybe caught, some glory days horror. It's shocking, and there's nothing like it. What can they compare it to? You know what I'm saying? Like, unless they've grown up seeing a shit ton of old horror movies from their parents or whatever, if you just see The Exorcist now and you're 20, you're probably in for a real treat, as they say.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's listen to some music. We're going to start on Metal Storm. Let me just get my screen sharing sorted out. Yeah, there we go. Let me know whether you can see this okay. Hopefully you can. Okay, first track we're going to listen to. Septage have unleashed a new track. It says here, Danish extreme metal trio Septage offer in listening a brand new track called Septic Baptism, which is part of the forthcoming debut record, Septic Worship, Intolerant Spree of Interesting Forms. Nice. The latter drops on March the 29th. It's a very interesting album title. I've never heard of Septage in my entire life.
Oh, I'm a fan. I'm a fan, actually.
Oh, really? You know them?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, let's hear what the song sounds like. Holy shit.
What do you think?
that is pretty fucking impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, these dudes do not fuck about. I see they're putting this record out on a label called Misako Unojo Records, who I've not really heard of before.
They have they have Undergang. They've done every Undergang release. Undergang's death metal band I'm a fan of. In America, both the Undergang releases and the prior Septage release are on the great Dark Descent records, who have, shit tons of great stuff. Introduced the world to Blood Incantation, actually.
Yeah.
I think Blood Incantation is on Century Media for Europe, but in America, they're on Dark Descent. Yeah, I have the prior Septage CD somewhere to the right of me, and this is reminding me to pre-order the new one. I mean, look, if you're like gore grind, look, not if you really think about it, right? There's not even a shit ton of like known, like, I don't know, gore grind bands that are like putting out consistent, like fucking awesome music. At least not in my opinion. Maybe it's not.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
If you're doing like the early Carcass Worship done right, I want to hear it. And I think I heard Septage for the first time about like 3 or 4 years ago. And I was like, this is like the old Carcass with like almost like this darker edge, which is something, right up my alley. I love the fucking gross out artwork. I like the vibe. So yeah, I'm on board.
It's heavy as shit as well. I mean, we probably won't listen beyond the first minute because we're halfway through the song already. But for those that want to check them out, they've got 2 EPs that were released in 2020 and 2021, Septic Decadence and Septisk Eradicazon. Like I said, they don't fuck about. I'm 100% with you though. In terms of gore grind and gore grind that's done to a turn, I think that there's not a huge number of bands that do it particularly well. But what I like about this is there's a bit of a groove to it as well. I don't like bands that just fuck around with speed. I always have to have that groove, that hook to anchor me in. I mean, maybe that's why I'm such a big fan of certain strains of New York hardcore. But it's that kind of manly, that manly shit that I'm absolutely down with. Yeah,
this is the not for wimps death metal, I will say. You know what I'm saying?
Without a doubt.
Right.
Speaking of stuff that's not for wimps, what is the latest news with Confusion?
Well, I'm happy to report we will be jamming very soon with a new drummer, actually, within the next few weeks. We did that show at the end of September, the first live performance the band had done in a great number of years, and it went really well. But the drummer we had at the time, my good buddy Rich O'Brien from the band Dark Side, decided that, that was going to be just a one-off show. And I was like, okay, he's literally one of my best friends, so it was totally cool. But took a bit of downtime, and now we're going to kind of, regroup, so to speak, with a new to be named drummer. Looking forward to that. The Last Stand is still on a bit of a hiatus, or should I say a hiatus, because the other 3 guys are busy with their other band Shutdown, who have a new LP coming out this year, actually, featuring none other than my brother Mark Scodotto on vocals, as some may know. Very incestuous scene, of course, in Brooklyn. And in Human, on the new news front, our 3rd record, The New Nightmare, has been taken off of digital for a good little while, actually, because the label it was on, AF Records, ran by the Anti-Flag guys, no longer exists. I received an email saying that the record is now in the ownership of the band. So a little later this spring, The New Nightmare, a record that a lot of people think might be one of our best records, or our best record, according to some people, will be back out on digital on the label Dead City Records. So look out for that announcement soon.
Awesome. Is it my imagination, or did you guys play with some real heavyweights on that September show?
We played with Killing Time and Terror and some cool up-and-coming hardcore band called Big Boy. It was great. It was really great. It was the Days Triple B Records Festival, which they do every fall, late summer, fall, in Brooklyn. And yeah, man, it was a lot of fun. The Confusion discography you can still pick up out there on Generation Records /Days Records. So yeah, I want to do some more with it and just, have some fun.
I was about to say, though, when you say jamming, are you guys thinking of writing some new music?
Maybe. I know our guitar player, Mike Price, would love nothing more than to do that. So we will see. Yeah.
Awesome. I cannot imagine. There's few bands. If I were in a band, there are few bands I would feel more intimidated about sharing a stage with than Terror. Because from the fucking second that Scott Vogel walks on stage, it's like, everyone else beware.
Honestly, I view Terror as a hardcore fan of 36 years, literally. I view Terror as one of the greatest hardcore bands, or the greatest hardcore band of the last 20 years. Okay. They have a live power and vibe that is just, you really need to see them live. Listeners, even if you're not the biggest hardcore fan, or if you've never seen Terror live, you need to see Terror live to, get what Jackie and I are talking about. There's just something about
I've seen them live twice. I don't know a single person who's ever seen them with me that wasn't unfamiliar with them, that's not gone away and gone, holy shit, that's fucking incredible.
Yeah. And, they have earned every bit of fucking fame and respect, that they have. And yeah, I'm in awe of them. And Scott is a really fucking cool guy. Many moons ago, Inhuman when Inhuman had shut down, we're on tour. We did a show, I believe in Kentucky with Buried Alive, his old band. And, it's, yeah, man, that guy fucking works hard. Props.
And then you've also got Biohazard back together with the old crew, making a new album, although I'm reserving judgment on how that's going to sound, because I don't really personally think they did anything after Mataleo that I was particularly interested in. There was a couple of songs here and there on the later records that I thought were good. Kings Never Die had like a couple of decent tracks on, but in the main, they just never seem to be able to recapture the magic of the first three albums. And you get that even when you see them live, there's like this disinterest that washes over the crowd when they play anything new, which is probably why they don't play anything new. I've seen them multiple times. Most times the entire set list is basically the track listing for Urban Discipline and for State of the World Address, and then they surprise you with a couple of tracks from the first album.
That's the thing. Look, if they've reformed the Plank shows, it's great. If they were like, you know what, we're not doing any new music at all. We are going to play these songs for our fans and have fun. And, no one would say a word. No. Making a new album is risky. I agree. I don't know who's going to do the lion's share of the songwriting. I mean, I don't know anything about the inner workings of the band, even though I know some of those guys, I guess it's a wait and see, hoping for the best.
Yeah, no, I agree. Now we move on to the absolute antithesis of Biohazard's music. My Dying Bride premiered the second of 3 Bells single. It says here, to promote their upcoming full-length effort, A Mortal Binding, the UK veterans My Dying Bride offer in listening the second single in advance, titled The Second of 3 Bells. The accompanying official video was directed by Daniel Waverly Gray. Mike Scodotto, are you a fan of My Dying Bride?
I am a very big fan. I started listening to them around 93 or so. Yeah, I own every record they've put out. How about that?
Out of interest, because it will be salient when we listen to this, what is your favorite My Dying Bride album? If you say you had to pick 2.
Had to pick 2. Turn Loose the Swans, number 1, 100%. Turn Loose the Swans is, and I think, the debut. I mean, look, I'm partial to the old stuff, but I do love latter stuff. I actually really love Angel in the Dark River, actually.
Great record.
Which at the time was like, okay, where's the, they've gotten soft or whatever, but I think that record is fucking insane. Yeah, there is a record in their collection that I don't own. Take a wild guess what the single record that I don't own is.
I can't imagine which that would be. Possibly 34.7887% complete.
What a great guess.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. every band of that era has a record or two that I love, that is missing from my collection. And that for them, that's that record. You know, the thing is, a part of me would like to check that out now because I have not listened to that in so long. Now, as a 50-year-old, I may actually find something about that record that I enjoy. In 97, My Dying Bride played New York City for the first time at this club called Coney Island High on St. Mark's Place. And I was there, and they literally, they haven't played New York City since. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like,
Jesus, I'm surprised at that, actually.
They played Maryland Death Fest in 2014. I was there for that. That was fucking so incredible. They're playing it again 10 years later. They're playing it this year. But, you know, if you're a fan in America of My Dying Bride, a longtime fan, a new fan, you've probably never even seen them. So, but I love new era My Dying Bride. The last few have been fucking killer.
Well, I shall reveal to everybody, because I've just gotten into the habit now, and I'm, you know, when I'm kind of jokingly saying I'm superstitious, but I have become superstitious because it feels to me like every time I announce a big guest, something happens. If that episode is not in the fucking tank by the time I announce it, disaster always strikes. However, this one is in the tank. It's fucking brilliant. So if you're a My Dying Bride fan, I've got Andrew Cragen coming on the podcast. I say coming on, I've recorded it already. Nice. But that episode will drop in 2 weeks' time. And we spoke at length about 34.7887% complete.
Oh, wow.
We spoke at length about Turn Loose the Swans. We spoke a lot about the new record. For me, when I heard that first single, a Thornwick Hymn, it really sounded to me like a return to just their absolute brilliant best. I thought Ghost of Orion was good, but it did lack the kind of emotional impact that Feel the Misery had. And we'll listen to this song real quick because I've heard the whole album. Nuclear Blast sent it to me in advance of me getting Andrew on. The album reminds me, ironically, of my two favorite My Dying Bride albums. I will reveal what those two albums are after we've given this one 60 seconds.
Wow.
What do you think?
Fuck yes. Oh my God. It's perfect, man. Like that's what I want My Dying Bride to sound like.
Yeah.
It sounds like a way better produced Angel in the Dark River-esque, but a little beefier. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like a little more, I don't know. I can't think of the right word, but a better production and maybe a little edgier.
a more grandiose version of Two Winters Only off of Angel in the Dark River.
It's fucking great. Oh, and by the way, I completely agree that Feel the Misery is a better record than Ghost of Orion. I actually really love Feel the Misery, and I love a map of all our failures a lot. And that might be one of my favorite album titles I've ever heard. A map of all our failures.
It's a fucking brilliant title. So, right, I think if you're a Paradise Lost fan, not Paradise Lost, sorry, My Dying Bride fan, as you've just illustrated now, you absolutely should have goosebumps when you hear that song. Exactly the same as when I heard A Thorn Like Him for the first time. It was just, it just instantly felt to me like, holy shit, this band is back, and like back in a very, very big way. I've heard the whole album, and without giving too much away, the two records I think it has the most in common with are my two favorite My Dying Bride albums, and this is coming from somebody who got into them around like Gods of the Sun, and then went back, discovered Angel in the Dark River, and so on. But it has the most in common with Feel the Misery and Songs of Darkness, Words of Light. It has some of the kind of a anger, some of the, the growling vocals and stuff, and some of the grandiose atmosphere of Songs of Darkness, Words of Light, but with that really emotional edge that was on Feel the Misery. Like I felt like that was probably one of the albums, and I don't know whether it was in the recording or the songwriting, it's probably a combination of both, but that really captured the sorrowful aspect of this band perfectly.
Yeah, I agree. I'm excited for the whole record, and I have a favorite latter era track by My Dying Bride, and it is the song "Deeper Down." Ever fuck with that song?
Oh yeah.
Love that.
Absolutely awesome.
It's got like mosh part in it. It's fucking insane. Love it.
I've got a couple that I'm very partial to. A Doomed Lover, which is the song that concludes Songs of Darkness, Words of Light. Actually, the first track on that album, The Wreckage of My Flesh, I think is a masterpiece as well. The song Feel the Misery is fucking fantastic. And again, the final track of Feel the Misery, Within a Sleeping Forest, just masterpiece, total masterpiece.
On a bit of a downer note, the song And My Father Left Forever, which came out around the time right after my father died, floored me. It's just, I love that song. Like, I love that whole record. There's just something about the way, like their song titles and their album titles, I feel like way more thought goes on for them than many other bands, Like, I don't know. Something goes into it, I think, that is probably painstaking.
Well, when I had Aaron on, he spoke about it, and this is another thing I covered at length with Andrew, but you're absolutely right that there is an extraordinary amount of thought and care and craft that goes into what they make. And I think what you could really take away from Aaron was how difficult he found doing the vocals on The Ghost of Orion, because in his mind, he couldn't find his emotional pitch for that record. And it's partly because the guy was exhausted from having to deal with his little girl's cancer.
That's right.
So,
yes.
He was in the studio. You imagine how emotionally drained you are at the point that you're stepping into the vocal booth. Now you have to try and summon these feelings where, you're just worn out. But it really wore on him. Like you could tell when I spoke to him, and Andrew covered it as well. It was something that he found incredibly difficult to deal with, because again, I think he has such high expectations of himself, and the band have extraordinarily high expectations of themselves.
Yeah, I cannot wait for the interview, bro. Stoked.
Yeah, no, dude, I'm super excited about sharing it with people. Let's give this another 60 seconds, because the song goes into a couple of cool directions from here. But if you're a My Dying Bride fan, get excited about that interview, because it's fucking brilliant. That is a top notch, without a shadow of a doubt.
Oh yeah, top notch.
The something that Aaron mentioned, well, he's mentioned it on other interviews too. He mentioned to me, Andrew touched on it as well. He doesn't see himself as a singer. He kind of sees himself, I think, as more of a narrator. And I have to say, I could not disagree with him more. That song is proof of it. His voice is fucking excellent. It's underrated, I think, unless you're a My Dying Bride diehard, how fantastically gifted of a singer he actually is.
Yeah, he sounds fucking great. Look, man, I'm 50, and to me, the Anathema, Paradise Lost, My Dying Bride trinity of bands are bands that have had a tremendous impact on my life and in the music I make, and the music I make does not in any way sound like any of those three bands. So I'm a big fan of these guys.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next one. More controversial. Pestilence release Horror Detox song. Legendary Dutch death metalers Pestilence preview their upcoming re-recorded best-of album Levels of Perception. Set for release on April the 26th via Agonia Records, the album features 12 tracks from across the band's 38-year career and will be preceded by a 3-week-long headlining tour of Europe, which starts on April the 3rd. That track that they've got on here, which we'll listen to in a second, Horror Detox, that comes off of their comeback record, Resurrection Macabre, which I really liked. And if we put aside the arguments around AI and, Patrick Mumelli being possibly one of the least self-aware human beings in this scene, I'm a fucking massive fan of Pestilence. Like, people mustn't get it wrong. And I'm a big fan, not just of the early stuff. I'm a huge fan of everything that they did from Resurrection Macabre on. I think Doctrine is great. I think Obsidio is a masterpiece. I think it's an unsung masterpiece. Hadeon is great. Exitum is great. I just cannot, as I said to Jason earlier on this episode, I cannot wrap my head around why you would pick a fight with your fans when they're clearly telling you, I don't like something. You know what I mean? It's like in a world where people have limited resources, limited time to invest in a fucking avalanche of great music that comes out every single Friday. Why would you fuck with that loyalty that you have from your existing fan base?
I don't know. I mean, what they could have done is apparently what Deicide's doing and blocking everyone who mocks the new album cover. Like,
yeah, well,
on all social platforms.
That was pretty funny, but
that's unbelievable. But anyway, I've never been a big Pestilence fan. I know who they are.
Really?
Yeah, they are on my death metal bands that has eluded Mike his entire life list. With such bands as Gorguts, let's see, Atheist, Pestilence. I think there's about 5 who I've just never really clicked with, and I don't own any of their records, and I've never really cared about. I know some people are throwing their phones right now, but Pestilence is one of those bands, but I know who they are. I'm very well aware of them. I know their album covers, I know their album titles, yada, yada. But I have a thought about the AI thing, and I feel like what it is now is a means of budget, a means of, say there's like a list of things to do for your album for, mid-sized band, small to mid-sized band, or even a bigger band. And one of them is artwork. And there's an X budget for the artist's artwork. And then you have to think about later on, well, we're going to make a t-shirt out of this. We're going to make a poster out of this. It's going to have original art from an artist. There's going to be X amount of money involved in this piece of art, which is new original art. Let's go the AI route and save every ounce of money that is involved in all the things that I just said. And let's put that money either into the band's pocket, into the label's pocket, into the record's budget. Am I right or wrong on that take?
I think you're correct, but I think it's an incredibly misguided approach to take. So the episode that this news rant will be included in, I've spoken with Jason Peppiatt of Psycroptic at length about this, and I started the conversation by sort of asking him whether I dunked him in it by suggesting that had Deicide or Pestilence come to him and asked him to do artwork, whether he would have done it for free. And he said yes. And I mean, I know just from artists that are fans of the podcast. If Pestilence had sent a DM to Matt Brizzo and they said, we're doing a new album, we love what you do, we'd love to commission some of your art for the record, I guarantee he would have responded back and said, I'll do it for you free of charge. And they would have gotten something fucking badass as well, way better than the bullshit that they've come up with for this record. So I totally agree with you. I think that's absolutely the thought process behind it, but to me it's completely and utterly misguided.
It is misguided. It's a bad choice. I'm not going to say that what I said is a good choice. I think that is why the choice is being made. It has to do with dollars and cents. It is still a bad choice aesthetically. It is a bad choice all around, because at the end of the day, not only are there maybe lesser known artists that would do it for free, there may even be wonderful artists that would do it for free because it's a legacy band, because it's a band that they love, because it's a high profile release. There is somebody out there that would do it. But I also think maybe it's laziness. It's laziness. You know what I'm saying? Now we got to find some artists and deal with some artists. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's so many levels to it, and it sucks.
Well, let's hear the song, because I'm curious to get your take on what it sounds like. Like I said, I know the original very well. I like that album that it's taken off of. Let's see what your take is on this.
Sure.
Okay, thoughts on the song, first of all.
It's good. It's good death metal. Now, okay, that's the new record?
Yeah, so this is the new record is a best of, and it's apparently they've got an actual new full length coming out later this year.
Okay.
But the upcoming release is a host of re-recordings. So it's re-recorded songs from previous records.
Okay.
But I think I know what you're about to drive at, and that is that it sounds like a fucking demo from 1987.
It sounds like a demo. It's 2024. Pestilence is supposedly a bigger death metal band, although I don't know about that. And Agonia is not, Steve's record label. It's, I've heard Agonia releases. They don't sound like that. So did they not only spend 5 cents on the cover, did they spend 8 cents on the recording? Did
they hold their phones up to the band room and say, there we go. That's new, something for the fans. Well, okay. So by contrast, let me play you the original.
Okay.
Does that not sound infinitely better than that fucking load of shit that we just heard a minute ago?
Night and day. And day. And when bands go back and re-record old songs or make an album, say, composed of songs from recordings that they didn't like from back in the day, yada, 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 Sick of It All did that. And it sounded like gangbusters, okay? Suicidal did it. It was terrible, but they did it. So what we're looking at here is a new Pestilence record where they have done it, A, they went this insane route of AI and fought their fans about it, and B, it's a bad recording to boot.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, this is the thing, right? The summary that you can take away from it is it's they're pissing on their legacy at this stage.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, that to me, I can't see any other. There's no other diagnosis for it. And by the way, just those re-recordings, another band that did it and did it well, I think Testament, when they did First Strike Still Deadly. I thought that was fucking excellent. That
does sound good. And also, if this version exists, which sounds very good, why in God's name did they you have a great version already? Why the hell did you do this?
Yeah, no, exactly. And this is a fucking excellent record. I mean, it doesn't get a lot of love on Metal Archive, but I would argue probably most of the newer records aren't getting a lot of love because a bunch of people recently went in there and put in their reviews. It sucks. You know, it's like Pestilence is going to become like one of those bands that get just review bombed because Patrick Morelli has gotten people's backs up to such a degree. But yeah, listen to Resurrection Macabre, but boycott this fucking dog shit. I think that's the only way. That's the only conclusion you could reasonably reach. Quick, just comment on Nasty Savage recording new material. I know we are due, and I mentioned it to Mike Hill when he was on the podcast last time. We're due to do our Thrash crossover 666 special. No sooner had I suggested that idea than I went back and I started digging up some of the records that may be contenders, and I've come to the conclusion that holy shit, is it going to be difficult doing that? Because I was getting into Dark Angel, Forbidden, Exorder, and it's like, oh my God, how do I narrow this down to 6?
To make it somewhat better, I almost feel like it has to be 80s. Has to be 80s.
Agree.
Maybe top 6 80s, just thrash metal. This way we exclude your leeways and your SODs and your, you know what I'm saying? Maybe, 80s thrash metal, or you know what I'm saying, 80s American thrash metal. I don't know. To make it somewhat easier, who knows? Although the 80s American thrash metal, I almost feel like there's a complete disservice to several bands. But we have to figure out a way to do it because I do want to do it.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely down with doing it. But I think you're absolutely correct. We left the parameters probably a little wider than we need. And we needed to, because just, you mentioned SOD there. How do you not include Speak English or Die on that list? It's a masterpiece. And then if we're talking crossover, Carnivore, Retaliation, that has to be on there. So now we've got 2 covered already. And then where does everything else start fitting in?
And then it's like, okay, Master of Puppets and Rain and Blood. And come on. It's got to be, we got to narrow it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But Nasty Savage, I know an awful lot of people that are very big fans. So, no doubt they're super excited about it. I myself am not just excited, I'm fucking giddy about the new Ulcerate. As you guys probably got off my comments on the on our Facebook chat, it's no secret, I'm a fucking enormous fan of this band. I don't think they've put a foot wrong in their entire careers. This new song completely and utterly blew my mind. We don't even have to hear it for me to give you my feedback. Frankly, I could have told you it's going to blow my mind before I even hit play, but I'm going to hit play. Let's see what you think. So I'm just conscious I didn't actually properly introduce this. So Ulcerate have put out their new single. The single's called The Dawn is Hollow. It says here, technical death metal outfit Ulcerate are premiering a video directed by Den Sora for the track called The Dawn is Hollow. The latter serves as a first excerpt from the band's newly announced album, Cutting the Throat of God, set for release on June 14th via the excellent Deborah Morty Productions. And of course, that's the sequel to Stare Into Death and Be Still, which I think is one of the greatest albums ever produced in extreme music. What are your thoughts on that track?
Great.
Yeah.
Ulcerate is a band that I remember I was paying attention to when they were on Relapse, and I really liked it. I've always wanted to see them live. I've never gotten to see them live. I need to check out the prior record, which I missed somehow. You know, sometimes I have this, it's this weird thing. Sometimes when certain bands leave Relapse or leave a label and get to another label that you are of smaller stature, sometimes I miss those records because they're not as promoted or pushed. And I see they're on December
Deborah Morty,
a label I've known for a while that I still can't pronounce. But I have all the Archgoat releases on that label and probably a few other bands. I am definitely going to peep this record. I'm going to get the one before this one as well, because this sounds fucking awesome.
Dude, if you've not properly gotten into Stare into Death and Be Still, you have got such a treat ahead of you. You know, this is like on a level like we were saying about, you know, the youngins not having seen The Exorcist or The Exorcist 3. You know, if you've not discovered that shit, you've got something super exciting waiting for you. But that album will blow your mind. If you like this, it is just, in my view, they set an incredibly high benchmark for modern atmospheric, dark, blackened death metal with that record. And I can already hear, because we'll give it another 60 seconds now, but I can already hear they've just taken another big step forward with this album.
Nice.
Awesome. Unreal.
Yes.
Beyond top notch.
Yes, dig it. Love it.
And if only to illustrate my point of earlier, we were listening to Pestilence, and you listen to that. Both are loosely, you know, defined as death metal.
Yeah.
But how do you even put out something like that Horror Detox single in the same week as this and expect anybody to give a fuck?
I don't know, man. Maybe it's just like the whole, we're Pestilence, and someone's going to buy this, and we have a name, and blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. You're talking to someone who doesn't think Pestilence are that good of a band. So there you go.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, another big name that very surprisingly announced, or big-ish name, let's say, that surprisingly announced a new album this week was Blaze of Perdition. So it says here, black metal formation Blaze of Perdition are ready to return with their new full-length offering titled Horsemen. Due out on April the 19th, 2024 via Metal Blade Records. It was mixed and mastered by Marcin Rybicki. For a preview, give a listen to the first streaming single. Apologies to all my Polish friends for the massacre of their language, but Kiwisi Rozlamu. I'm sure that is about as far wrong as I could have gotten it. But are you a fan of Blaze of Perdition?
I know the name, Jackie. I've never heard a note of this band.
Oh, really? Oh, well, another band you're in for a treat there. So Blaze of Perdition's earlier records are probably my favorites. Their very first record towards the Blaze of Perdition that came out in 2010 is a black metal masterpiece, in my opinion. Like it's if you did a list of of my top 50 favorite black metal albums, it would certainly be a contender. The Hierophant that they put out afterwards, very good too. Near Death Revelations, very good also. The Harrowing of Hearts was the most recent one, and I very much enjoyed it, but it did kind of it didn't necessarily stick with me like the others. I had Pavel Marchek, who's the wheelchair-bound singer of the band. I did have him on the podcast like way back for episode 22 or 23. Fantastic interview. But yeah, as I said, that record just didn't quite. It's not something I've wanted. I've had a inclination to return back to. So I'm very curious to hear what this sounds like. I've actually not heard the song yet. So yeah, let's give it a spin. Thoughts, Mike Scodotto?
Not bad at all. I checked out the Metal Archives. I see they have been around a while, 20 years, and have about 800 releases out in the last 20 years, which is cool. And I also see they are from Poland. Not bad at all, actually. Don't know if it's something that I would, go out and buy their catalog, but maybe I'll give it more of a listen. But certainly better than Pestilence's new release.
Well, I was about to say the recency bias versus Pestilence is gonna help a couple of bands represent pretty well, I think. But I would strongly suggest, because I've got a hunch of the kind of music you like. I would strongly suggest you check out Towards the Blaze of Perdition, because I think you will enjoy that very much. And this, I have to say, I mean, it's 90 seconds, but my first impressions of it are very positive, very positive. I like the vocals very much.
Yeah.
I think when they slow the song down and they simplify the riffing and it just sounds heavy. It sounds epic and crushing. It is unmistakably Polish. And again, you're talking about a land whose black metal scene is unbelievably bountiful.
Yeah.
I am digging this very much so far. Actually,
I like the name. I like the name of the band. Very cool.
Blaze of Perdition, yeah.
Yes.
They have caught the ire of the cancel mobs, by the way. I don't even know what for in particular. I think somebody from the band played in another band that folks disapproved of. That's about all I know of the story. But yeah, they've not had they're a band who may have trouble playing in the States. Put it that way. Not as much trouble as Marduk or Toka, but yeah, they'll have trouble the same. Let's give it another 60 seconds.
Cool.
I like that part that we just paused on now, and it's definitely this song, anyways, sounds a lot busier than anything off of Harrowing of the Hearts, which to me is a good thing. So
Yeah,
I like it. I like it. All right, we have to get to the song. I think everybody's wondering what we think of. Because there's extensive conversation to be had about this. 6 Feet Under launch a brand new track after the fucking living horror show that was Nightmares of the Decomposed. Comes a new song called No Nothing Ingrate, which is part of their new record, Killing for Revenge. It's due out on May the 10th, 2024. And this is the brand new single. Like I said, No Nothing Ingrate. We're going to check out the video, and then we'll circle back. What are your first impressions?
Love it.
Yeah?
Love it. You're talking to someone, okay, who really, really likes the first 4 6 Feet Under records. How about that? Okay? Always did. I fell off with them pretty much after that, and then would only check in on the bad stuff, quote unquote, and the stuff that just was not good and laughable, and the bad cover albums and the this and the that. But in the back of my head in all these years, had a lot of love for Chris Barnes and always really enjoyed those early records for just the fucking riffs. You know what I'm saying? And the cool vocals and the really good mid-tempo death metal and the slow death metal and just like master class shit of it, in my opinion, because to me, Chris Barnes and Alan West, of course, of old Obituary fame, are legends for me, okay? Cut to the modern era, okay?
Yeah.
And then, his Twitter rants and his, fights with other bands and all of that aside, I still have tremendous respect for him, what he did on the first 4 Cannibal Corpse records, what he did on the first 4 6 Feet Under records, and his legend status. I've never met the guy. When I was younger, Confusion opened for them, and it was really cool. I got to see them many times with Barnes. I've seen them 8,000 times with Corpse Grinder. Of course, I'm a fan of Cannibal. Based on this song, okay, I have not heard the last 3 4 records of 6 Feet Under. I haven't heard them. Based on this song, I am stoked for this record. And with Jack Owen in the band, of course, of Cannibal Corpse fame, I think that's fucking cool as shit. Apparently he was on the prior record. I don't even think I knew that. So maybe I want to check that record out, although I heard it's not good.
About to say you want to pay yourself that.
So yeah, I fucking dig it.
Yeah. So okay, let me give my 2 cents, my more maybe more balanced 2 cents on Chris Barnes, because as I said, I've ragged an awful lot on some of the stuff he's done, but like you, I'm a very big fan of the first 4 Cannibal Corpse albums. I'm a big fan of the entire Cannibal Corpse back catalog. Yeah. But to me, when he was on The Bleeding and when he was on Haunted, that was like the most powerful, some of the best death metal performances I'd ever heard in my entire life.
Game changer. Yes.
Yeah, 100%. I went this single actually made me go back and revisit my two favorite my two erstwhile favorite 6 Feet Under albums, Haunted and Maximum Violence. I also like Warpath very much. True Carnage, I think, is all right. I think it's got some very good songs. It's got a couple of moments that I don't think are all that great. And that's actually a repeating pattern across most of their albums after that. Like you, I kind of lost interest a bit with Bringer of Blood. I thought it was a very poor record. And then later on with Commandment, Death Rituals, Undead, Unborn, there's some cool songs there. Again, not consistent, but there's still some cool songs. Haunted, to this day, to me, having revisited it this week, it's brilliant from start to finish. It's fucking excellent. And his vocals are the best he ever sounded in his career. I have developed a theory, and I'm keen to get your take on this. So what happened between Haunted and Warpath? Because on Warpath, there's a very distinct change in his vocal style, and his vocal style never, ever, or his vocals never get back to the impact that they had on Haunted and Bleeding, like that power, that, real, like that muscle they had. What happens in the interim? The sessions for Created to Kill, which would later on become Vile. And what my theory is, did he push himself so hard trying to do the very demanding vocal lines that Created to Kill would have demanded of him, which ultimately, is why he ended up not being kicked out of the band. At least that's the story. Like he wasn't able to hack what they needed him to do, so he left the band. But did he push himself too far and it fucked his voice up permanently?
Quite possibly, yes. Quite possibly, yes. Look, man, as a screamer myself, my screaming voice has changed. It doesn't sound like it did years ago. I'm someone who actually did not even like his voice on the first two Inhuman records. Didn't even like my voice back then because I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. I love the latter two records, and I like my voice on all the Last Stand records. Okay. Your voice changes, and you can fuck it up. So there's a very good chance, yes. And it's funny you say that. Like when you listen to Vile, right, and you listen to Corpse Grinder's performance, and then you mentally switch out Barnes. It's almost like, Jesus, could he have sung on this record? It's like obviously there's the demos, whatever he quote unquote did, but a lot of it is just really not his like cup of tea. It's not his, you know what I'm saying? In his
it definitely doesn't sound like it's written to suit his style.
No, it was almost written to spite his style. It's like in my head sometimes, like I'm not a big fan of the Sammy Hagar era of David Lee of Van Halen at all. It's a little too poppy, it's a little too light, but I love the song Why Can't This Be Love? Because it rocks. And every time that song comes on, and I like the song, there's a version that plays in my head with David Lee Roth singing it, because that's a song I think he could have sung. And when I hear Vile, it's like, this was the line of demarcation. I don't think it would have worked properly. You know what I'm saying? Like, although, like I said, there's a version that exists. It's, it's weird, Yeah.
Well, I went back and I listened to that actually, because as I was mulling through this theory, I went, let me go back and let me check out the Created to Kill demos. It sounds a lot better than I remember it sounding. There are a couple of songs where he just patently cannot, his voice can't cope. Mummified and Barbed Wire is one. Devoured by Vermin is terrible. Puncture Wound Massacre, it just falls apart completely. Tell you what he does do pretty well, though. There was a song that was going to be called To Kill Myself. I think it became Eaten from the Inside, which is a great song on the record. But I think I would actually argue on this particular track, Barnes sounds even better to me than Corpse Grinder. So give this a quick listen. Tell me what you think.
Wait, I got a quick question. What artwork is that?
I don't know. It's very out of focus, this. It looks like Vincent Locke artwork. It's got the original logo.
That's
so
sick.
No, I don't know. But anyway, let's give this a quick listen. Tell me what you think.
inside. I suffered my left arm with the hatchet, making the death slowly to mutilated, losing all control. Broke the dawn of my body bone. Making this life is no reason to die. And I'm dead in a grave. I cut my throat, I rape myself every day. And I said, execute, I slit my wrist and make it down. Touching myself. So murder, brings more terrible pain. Suicide, onward escape.
Well, that last part sounds fucking just mean as shit. I love it, but yeah,
it's
as
cool.
I said, it's cooler than I remember it sounding. But I still, I think there's some merit to it. I mean, there's probably a lot of things, right? You know, we know he likes to rip a bong. A lot of dudes like to rip a bong, and their voices didn't get so irrevocably damaged as his has done over the years.
I don't know.
It could just be bad technique. I don't know, but
I feel like, yeah. Could he have sung the record? Yes. I think at points, definitely some rough spots. I almost feel like I heard a rough spot or two in this, actually. He was good.
Where you could, rhythmically he wasn't sticking with, what the song sounded like.
Yeah. And I guess Webster and the guys back then were like, we want to be more technical and, and we want a singer that can match that. We're already butting heads with Barnes. They weren't getting along apparently at this point. Late 94, early 95, whatever. We got to get a new guy in here. Yada yada yada. And thus history is made. But it's always interesting that Metal Blade never wanted to put out an official release of that. What do you think?
Was it not on the Centuries of Torment box set that was released?
Right. I'm talking about a standalone. It was never.
Oh, yeah.
And the box is out of print. So.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, I don't know whether that was maybe driven by the band. It could very well be the band said we don't want this put out. It's the past.
Yeah.
George Corpse Grinder is the future. I also went back and I compared the Created to Kill stuff to Vile, and I was reminded again how fucking cool George Corpse Grinder sounds on that record. Like he almost sounds like a black metal vocalist on some songs there, because he uses his high pitch far more frequently than I can recall on and even though I've listened to those songs many times. But yeah, he was just, I remember hearing Vile, and it took me a while to wrap my head around it because I was so taken with the bleeding. But when I properly got into it and I, accepted, okay, Barnes is a thing of the past, it was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, I just think they had reached their point with Barnes, and he had already done the 6 Feet Under record, and it was kind of a foregone conclusion,
My take on this new song, I'm not blown away by it. It's not bad. I said last week when the news about the record came out, I'd hoped there was, there'll always be a part of me that roots for some of these old guys to put out something that just blows people's minds. Like I will always root for Deicide or even Kerry King or Slayer. To put out something that just people go, holy shit! Like where did that come from? Same with Metallica. But by comparison to Nightmares of the Decomposed, this is a masterpiece. So at the very least, the trend line is going back in a positive direction.
The trend line is going back in a positive direction. And the word on the street, which is a term I like to use, is good for this song. It's actually way better. Like, there's a lot of people saying this is better than I thought it was going to be. And this is actually not bad at all. This is good. That's a lot of what I'm reading. So who knows what hell, what if it's a solid record? I mean, fuck. I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, I also, you were mentioning his Twitter rants and stuff like that. If you put yourself in the bloke's shoes, you can get why he might be a little embittered, and his rants about the scene and stuff like that, because you could, if you saw it from his perspective, you could see an argument there's an argument to be made that he has been, the scene chewed him up a little bit and spat him out.
Yeah.
he had been one of the focal points. Like if you watch that Centuries of Torment documentary, there's no doubt that he was a focal point of the band in those early days.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the band turns around and goes, "Fuck it, you're out," and it's like he has to turn his back after this really difficult recording session on something that he had been, his formative years had been to help build this up, and he was, a key player in building it up.
100%. And a lot of his Twitter rants I actually agreed with, and some of his scene takes I actually agree with. And every day, every week, there's a new death metal band forming that is inspired by his Cannibal Corpse records. There's a singer emulating his voice on those Cannibal Corpse records.
Yeah.
That's the fucking truth of it. So he should be given a little more respect sometimes, I think. Same for David Vincent. David Vincent is another one who's lambasted and clowned quite a bit. But at the end of the day, those two gentlemen, for me, are legends and should be respected. That's my.
Well, David Vincent, for me, was the coolest motherfucker on the face of the earth. Like, as somebody as a young blood, I totally idolized that guy. I'll never forget the interview that I saw that Vanessa Warwick did with him when the Morbid Angel were touring with Paradise Lost and Creator. And he was just so well spoken and so eloquent, but he just had this presence about him that I just thought was awesome. It's just, absolutely, to me, that was what a metal front band should be like.
Yeah. I mean, super duper important figures, in my opinion. And sure, some of the things they do in the modern era are questionable, but you can't take away what they've done.
Yeah. Totally agree. All right, let's wrap up with this one. Dark Throne, the news has come out. We'll be putting out a new studio album next month. It says here, It Beckons Us All has been set as the official title of the newly announced studio album by Norwegian legends, Dark Throne, comprised of 7 tracks. It will land in stores on April the 26th, 2024 via Peaceful Records, recorded in April and May of 2023 at Chaka Khan's studio in Oslo, the same location used for the Eternal Hails and Astral Fortress albums, mastered by Jack Control at Enormous Door, with artwork courtesy of the Polish artist Zbigniew Bielak. I have queued up for us a snippet of the album that's about as long as we would typically listen to on the news rant in any case. So let's give that a quick spin, and I'm keen to get your thoughts on it. What are your thoughts?
That is the best sounding Dark Throne song snippet riff I've heard in a minute.
Yeah, agree.
That is my first thought. Okay. It's so hard for me. They're my favorite black metal band of all time, and I haven't enjoyed the last 3 to 4 albums they've put out. I think the heavy metal phase has gone on for a very, very long time, and to mixed results. I don't know what the rest of this record is going to bring, but I so far really love the album cover. I like the album title, and I really like that song snippet. They have such a place in my heart. Again, another band that means so much to me. always cheering for them. Have not enjoyed the new output of, the last few records. I just haven't enjoyed it at all. I think the last one I really, really liked might have been Circle the Wagons, or the one right after that. I don't know. I'm excited because that's a really good riff, and it's dirty. It almost sounds like Too Old, Too Cold-ish, from that era, which I fucking loved. So it's a wait and see, but I've got some optimism here, and the fingers are crossed. What about you?
Same. I absolutely couldn't stand Old Star. I thought it was a terrible record. Eternal Hails had one really great song, Wake of the Awakened, and everything other than that was shit. Astral Fortress actually had two good songs. The Sea Beneath the Seas of the Sea and Kevorkian Times I thought were both pretty decent, and then the rest of the album not good. But this is the most positive I've felt about a Dark Throne release probably since Circle the Wagons, actually. Hearing a first clip going, okay, I'm digging what I'm hearing here. I like the riff very much. I think the production sounds fucking cool. I think the vocals sound great. I feel like the heavy metal experiment, maybe this is the record where it actually finally pays off. I would love nothing more than to have heard a return to the sound of Hate Them, but that's never going to happen. So
I don't think it is. And everyone, look, there's a lot of people that would love for that to happen. And, what I love about them is the bane of their existence, which is we're going to do whatever we want. I love we're going to do whatever we want. But we're going to do whatever we want also means, man, am I not always going to like this?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I mean, my favorite, I like the early stuff very much. I know your favorite is Panzerfaust. My favorite albums are Hate Them, number 1, Plague Wielded, number 2, number 3, Sardonic Wrath. I just think those three that kind of came out, within a 4-year period, it's just prime Dark Throne. I Hate Them especially. Like when that album fires up, it is such a hateful, menacing, just violent black metal record. It's perfect black metal to me.
Yeah, those are great to go back to, man. I mean, what a catalog! It's just such an important band, and again, love them. Always rooting for them. There was a time when Fenris and I had a correspondence. I'm thanked on 2 Dark Throne records.
Awesome. Which 2 are you thanked on?
Oh man, let's see. Hold on, I'm literally looking at the CDs here. Might be Underground Resistance, Circle the Wagons, actually. Or I might be off by 1 or 2, but there was a time when we were emailing each other a lot, and he was just so cool. He made me a CDR, which I have. I have to take pictures of it and show our respective Facebook group chat that we have among the Horsemen. It's a really cool CDR with some really cool shit on it. And then right after that time, he kind of he made a point of saying that he was closing out this email address and he was taking a break from corresponding with people, and he certainly did. And when I went to Norway, I tried to hook up with him, and it was very hard to get a hold of his newer email and shit. So I mean, I love the guy, and there's a picture of him wearing an Inhuman shirt out there. Actually, I could find you that and send that to you.
Oh, that's fucking cool too.
What a sweetheart of a guy. And again, so much fucking love for the band. But man, I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, agree. All right, brother. That was a blast. Thank you very much for coming on and doing it with me. I love doing the news rant, but I do genuinely like doing it. It's not logistically possible to do it with every single episode, but I love having people on. And as I said, I've always known you'd be a fucking brilliant co-host for the news rant. So thank you very much for doing it.
Thank you, man. This is fucking so much fun. I love doing it with you, and dude, love the show, man. Love you, and fucking excited for all the shit you got coming up. And I can't wait for the review of your Norwegian extravaganza.
Well, stick around. I'll hit stop. I'll just share a little something with you on that I don't want to announce just yet. But let me wrap this up, and then we can quickly talk offline.
Cheers.
Thank you very much to Sheriff Mike Scodotto for helping me lay the law down on the weak and the posers. I also want to say thank you very much to my guest this week, Jason Peppiatt of Psycroptic, Permafog, and Domination Campaign, who you are about to hear when I fully wrap up the show. I will be back next Tuesday. Like I said, my guest is Andrew Cragen of My Dying Bride, and man, if you're a My Dying Bride fan, you are going to cream your little shorts at this episode. Hope you guys stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you bad motherfuckers again next week.